Chapter 11. Picked it up. 4. Young Master. I heard about everything from Deputy Butler Hands. This Ron will do whatever I can with my lacking abilities to make sure you can shine at the Capitol. Cal's shoulders were starting to shake as he walked out of the Count's estate. He was thinking about the conversation he had with Ron as soon as he woke up this morning. This is going to be your first time outside the Hennetus territory, right? I am very good at hunting rabbits. I will hunt some rabbits for you when we are camping outside. Ron's calm and benign voice echoed in Cal's ears. He felt as if he could still hear Ron's voice echoing like a hallucination throughout the fog outside. Cal was scared of the fact that Ron was explaining to him about how to hunt a rabbit first thing in the morning. You need to be careful when handling a small animal like a rabbit that gets scared easily. Since you don't know when or how it will run, you need to pay attention to the surroundings and kill it in an instant. You also need to remove the innards after catching it. I am also very good at that. Cal had to turn away as Ron mimicked cutting open a rabbit with his hands. Ron was excited. However, the only thought Cal was having right now was that Ron was toying with him. Cal was just happy that Ron was heading to the Capitol with him. I can tack on Beecrox as my personal chef. Ron. Beecrox? Cal had already told Hands this morning so that he could bring the father and son duo with him. Of course, Ron was there as well. Hands, I want to take Beecrox as my personal chef for this trip. May I ask why Beecrox? He is extremely busy running Kitchen Hash too, I don't know. But I can't eat anything other than Beecrox's cooking. I will be taking him, so you figure out the rest. Hands became anxious, but Ron seemed to be happy to be going with his son. Young Master, my son will be very happy. We had a need to go to the Capitol anyways. I will deliver your exact words to him. Cal relaxed after hearing Ron's words. He was worried that they would say no, but Beecrox should enjoy leaving the Hennetus territory and traveling to the Capitol as well. Cal walked through the foggy western city as he thought about the people he would take with him to the Capitol. The story was progressing a little differently than the novel, but it wasn't like he could give up on gaining some benefits for himself. Young Master, you are here early today. The baker seemed to be pretty relaxed around Cal after seeing him a couple of times. Cal just stoically asked the baker, "The bread?" The baker smiled as he handed Cal a bag full of bread. "Of course, I have it all ready, but is today really the last day?" "Why, greedy for more money?" "Yes, I definitely am." Cal started to smile. He liked honest answers like this. Cal patted the shoulder of the baker, who seemed to be a bit more relaxed around him, and headed for the slums. "I'll come back when I want to eat it again." The baker longingly watched as Cal disappeared into the fog and then started to pray. He was praying for Cal to come back and spend a ton of money. Cal naturally did not know about the baker's prayer as he walked over to the slums. He then saw the siblings waiting for him. Do these kids not have a home? Cal had come much earlier than usual. However, the siblings were curled up together and waiting for him, as if they had been waiting at the top of the hill all night. The younger brother seemed to be leaning into his older sister's embrace. The siblings were quietly looking up at Cal. Their hair and clothes seemed damp, probably because they stayed here through the foggy morning. Of course, Cal pretended not to notice. "Here, take it." The young boy took both of their shares from Cal. Cal waited until the boy picked it up before turning around and heading for the man-eating tree. I'm glad it is foggy. The fog made it difficult to see. Since this hill was the highest point in Western City, other than the Count's estate, the fog was even thicker up here. Nobody else would be able to see what Cal is doing, or more importantly, what Cal receives from the tree. More, give me more. Please. Cal poured a bag of bread into the hole while listening to the eerie voice of the grudge-filled soul as usual. The darkness inside the hole was slowly turning from gray to white. Cal started to smile, thinking that all his efforts were not for naught. It was at that moment. More. What? Cal flinched and stepped backwards at the voice that now turned into a shriek. The novel didn't mention something like this. More. I will give you a present if you bring me more. A present. That word made Cal's eyes start to sparkle. Although he didn't expect the soul to go crazy like this, the end was near. Just wait. The black branch started to sway, as if nodding at him. It felt like a scene out of a horror movie. Cal shivered as he started to move back through the fog. It was the middle of the morning now, but the sun was not out, and the fog continued to get thicker. It looked like it would start to rain soon. The siblings must have gone somewhere, as he did not see them, but Cal just thought they went to dodge the rain and put the third bag of bread in front of the man-eating tree. This should be the last bunch. The light inside the hole was now as white as the fog surrounding Cal. It should become transparent after I put this last bag of bread in. Cal was full of anticipation as he poured the last bag into the tree. And finally, ooh-woo-woo-wong, a rumbling that was worlds different than the past rumblings poured out from the tree toward Cal. This rumbling, that was only aimed at Cal, did not catch his attention because of the hole that was starting to turn transparent. It should be dark inside the hole because of the shadow of the tree, but such a realistic situation did not occur. That was the ancient power. The moment Cal saw the ancient power, he could hear the voice that had been asking him for more food until now. It was so good. That voice was obnoxious, that soft texture of bread. I especially liked the third bag of bread you brought. I guess even food develops as time goes by. There was no such thing as bread back in my days. The wheat itself must grow on a really fertile land. Yes, not all wheat is the same. The voice was evaluating the taste of the bread. A storm caused by the voice started to rush toward Cal. This wasn't in the novel. The spirit that was tied down to the earth, because of its grudge, was resolving that grudge by evaluating the taste of the bread. Cal started to frown further. He was only thinking about the ancient power in the birth of a hero. This indestructible shield was the only ancient power that was written about in the novel but never claimed by anyone. No wonder nobody ended up taking control of it. But then why would the author mention something that could be useful but was never actually taken by anybody? That was the thought in Cal's head, however. The obnoxious voice continued to chatter away, making him unable to focus. That's why I am so full. It was delicious, chatter, chatter. It felt like the grudge was from not being able to speak instead of not being able to eat. After hearing the spirit chat on and on for a couple of minutes, evaluating all of the different types of breads that Cal had brought, Cal nodded his head and tried to cut the voice off. Things like this were not available in ancient times. The people of the Forest of Darkness claimed to be servants of a god, yet only gave me tasteless things. However, Cal decided to wait a little longer after hearing the spirit mention the ancient times. I was, naturally, banished from that place. They said I was a glutton my ass. Of course, I left with my friends. We were planning on putting the world back on the right track. For someone like him who needed ancient powers, it was important to listen to stories about the ancient times. However, the story soon ended, and the spirit went back to talking about food and other useless things. Cal quickly cut it off. I don't think I could give up this taste even if I got fat. It's so unfair that I had to eat dirt and ended up dying. Yes, it was an amazing and professional evaluation. You're a bit low, the spirit cut Cal off. You understand my evaluation. You are a really good guy. Thanks. Cal couldn't tell whether he could really communicate with the spirit or not. Cal really could not figure out the situation at hand. At least the voice stopped after telling him thanks. Cal looked toward the tree in front of him. How interesting. The man-eating tree, the originally black man-eating tree, was starting to turn white. It then started to slowly grow some green leaves. The scene looked even more mystical because he was surrounded by fog right now. Ooh-woo-wong, the noise held some heaviness compared to before. Cal kneeled on one side and sat down underneath the trunk of the tree. A bright white light was pouring out from the hole. Cal put his hand into the light. He then closed his eyes. This must be it. A warm and strong power that wrapped around his hand. He started to smile before hearing the voice one more time. It was a pure and warm voice. It will protect you. Shine. For a very short moment, a bright light wrapped around Cal. The light was silver in color, and the light started to become absorbed by his body. The absorbed light all gathered at Cal's heart. Huh! Cal let out a long sigh as he opened his eyes. It did not hurt. It was warm, and the pure power was making him feel happy. Cal quickly lifted up the shirt that he was wearing. I did it. There was a small silver shield inscribed over his heart. It was different from a tattoo. Such a beautiful and fancy shield left its mark over Cal's heart. The shield will prioritize its owner's safety above anything else. The location of that promise was at the heart. This shield will be with Cal until his heart stops beating. How nice. Cal could feel the strength wrapping around his heart. It was not causing any issues. In fact, it felt like the shield had surrounded his heart and was doing its best to protect him. Ancient powers like this left their unique mark when they are activated. Cal quickly used the method that was written in the novel to trigger the ancient power. Paat. The indestructible shield appeared in front of Cal's eyes. It was a silver shield that was just large enough to cover Cal's upper body. There were 2 silver wings on both sides of the shield, which allowed the shield to move within a certain radius from Cal. The size of the shield was also controllable. Cal started to control the size of this shield that already felt like it was a part of his body. This immediate familiarity was one of the special traits of ancient powers. That was why heroes used it, even if it was just as a support. Cal started to smile, a maximum of 2 times. Cal was thinking in terms of Choi Han, the strongest person around him right now. The shield should be able to block 2 of Choi Han's attacks. The strength of this shield is stronger than I expected. Why would the heroes not use it all the time? The indestructible shield, unlike its name, actually is capable of breaking. However, it does not disappear upon breaking. If the shield receives an attack stronger than its abilities, it will store as much of its strength as possible to protect the owner's heart before it breaks. After a while, the shield will recover its strength and can be used again. The strength of the shield comes from the owner's heart, the beating heart. That heart becomes the strength of the shield. The heart strengthens the shield while the shield protects the heart. So, what would happen if the heart gets stronger? It will get even stronger. There were many ways to strengthen ancient powers. Cal will be strengthening this shield on the way to the capital. Once that happens, he should be able to make a shield that can last at least 5 minutes when someone of Choi Han's caliber tries to kill him with all of their strength. Ancient powers, as seen with this man-eating tree, are difficult to earn unless you coincidentally run into them. The person who knows the most about these coincidences in the first 5 volumes is probably Cal Henitus, the current Cal Henitus. Cal started to smile. He reached out and touched the shield. It felt nice. However, there was one thing he didn't like about it. It seems too divine. At full strength, it looked like a holy shield that the knights of God carry with their swords in myths. Of course, the former owner of this shield was a priestess who was tired of the term God, and the current owner, Cal, just didn't like gods. It's not like there will be many reasons for me to use this. He was planning on leaving the fighting to everyone else. The terror attack at the capital. He may have to use it if something dangerous happens there, but he will make sure it is small and faint so that other people will not notice it. Cal returned the shield to his heart and patted the now white tree as he started to walk away. The misty rain inside the fog started to wet Cal's shoulders. Cal liked the fog but did not like rain. He started to walk faster toward home. He needed a carriage. It was at that moment. Meow. Meow. Cal suddenly felt a chill on the back of his neck. It was the alley right outside the Count's estate. He could see 2 pairs of round, golden eyes. Cal started to frown. There were 2 kittens who looked extremely pitiful and drenched in the rain. They continued to meow as they approached Cal. They then started to rub their cheeks on Cal's legs. Sigh. Cal let out a sigh and started to walk. The 2 little kittens followed behind them. The tiny things somehow managed to keep up with Cal, even with their short legs. "Young master, what is going on?" The person who greeted Cal at home was Deputy Butler Ainz. Ainz had a confused expression as his eyes opened wide. He seemed to be shocked. Cal clicked his tongue and handed Ainz the things in his hands. "Don't ask stupid questions and just take them." Ainz's eyes started to shake. What cute and lovely kittens. This deputy butler really did seem to be butler material. Cal carefully put the 2 kittens in the hands of the extremely excited Ainz. The 2 kittens that were dangling in Ainz's hands continued to look at Cal, even when they were in Ainz's arms. "Young master, may I take care of these 2 lovely kitten-nims?" "Whatever you want." Hands started to smile in joy. Cal started to walk past the excited Hands as he added on. Ah, for your information, they become quiet if you give them food. The two of them are also siblings. The two kittens flinched and started to shake. Their golden eyes opened widely as they looked toward Cal. Excuse me? The moment Hands asked in confusion, Cal moved back toward Hands. He then lowered his head and caressed the two kittens. He had wondered about it for the last few days, but how could he not know by now? The silver kitten had a faint smell of the medicinal herbs he had given to the girl. When he picked the two kittens up earlier, he could also smell the beefsteak and bacon cream pasta that he had given them this morning as well. That made Cal certain. The events of the last few days were finally resolved in Cal's head. Did you think I wouldn't know? The two kittens' golden eyes continued to shake. Cal looked at the siblings he had been feeding the last few days and started to smile. Chapter 12. Picked it up 5. Tap. Tap. Even at the rough patting, the baby kittens could only stiffly stare at Cal. Cal thought about the moment when he first met Choi Han. The injured silver kitten was growling while the red kitten was whining next to it. The silver kitten should be the older sister with gray hair, and the younger brother must be the red kitten. Cal had a bright smile on his face. He looked toward the kittens and started to speak. We'll talk later. The siblings who seemed to be beast people avoided his gaze, and Hands confusingly replied, Are you talking to me? Not you. Hands looked at Cal and the two kittens with an even more confused expression on his face, before holding the kittens even tighter. It was a movement that seemed to show that he was trying to avoid a dangerous person. However, he soon had to approach Cal once again. Are you heading back out? Yes. It was because Cal changed his coat and was preparing to leave again. Where will you be going? I have a promise to keep and someone to meet. Young master, you are going to keep a promise? Hands looked to be shocked again as he questioned Cal. You seem to be getting ruder. My apologies. The deputy butler's apology was very quick. Is he really the best of the butler candidates? He seemed decent by the way he handled Choi Han's issue. Cal felt like Hands, who was caressing the kittens with a wide grin on his face, was not very reliable. I'm going to take him to the capital as well. Cal was thinking about this, something that Hands would never expect even in his dreams, no, something that Hands would lament even if he learned about it in his dream, before Cal asked about the person he had not seen for a while. Where's Ron? Hands had a satisfied smile on his face at that question. I heard that Choi Han Nim will be going with you as one of your guards for the beginning part of your journey to the capital. Is that true? Hands was thinking about Choi Han, who had defeated all of the Count's Night Brigade members today. He was more skilled than expected, making it easy for him to be Cal's guard as Cal wanted. Of course, neither Hands nor the Knights knew that Choi Han had hidden his true power. Mr. Ron found out that Choi Han Nim will be going with you and went out with Choi Han Nim to purchase some clothes and other necessary items for travel. Ah, Chef Beecrox went with them as well. I see. I'm relieved. They seem to be getting along well. There was a rare, extremely bright smile on Cal's face. The smile was very fitting with his beautiful red hair. Hands started to speak while being happy about Cal's bright smile. Mr. Ron, Choi Han Nim, and even Beecrox seemed to be excited about serving you. He could see an instantaneous change in Cal's face as he said that. Why would Cal suddenly look like he lost his appetite? Hands could not figure it out. Both individuals headed outside the main gates once again. As he got on the carriage, Cal asked Hands, who was watching him leave. Oh, Hands. Don't the deputy butlers learn basic martial arts? Of course. And you are the greatest butler candidate. The corner of Hans's lips started to move up and down. Count Daruth cherished Hands because he took care of things well and had the best personality as well. Yes, sir. I know the basics for 3 different styles: martial arts, dagger arts, and spear arts. A good butler needed to learn a couple different basic fighting styles, just in case something happened and the family members needed to run away. Amazing. I guess I am a bit amazing. Cal could not hold back his smile watching Hands shrug his shoulders while his lips continued to flicker. The two kittens could only shake their head as they watched Hands and the sly smile on Cal's face. I'm leaving now. Cal made up his mind to take Hands to the capital to take care of all annoying things he didn't want to deal with, and then closed the carriage door. The carriage headed into the fog and the now stronger rain to head to his destination. The fragrance of tea with poetry. Cal looked up at the sign before opening the door. Ring. The clear ringing of the bell and a desolate shop welcomed Cal. I guess nobody is here because of the rain. Welcome, young master. Billows, the bastard of the Flynn Merchant Guild. He welcomed Cal as if they had known each other for a long time. Cal sat in front of the counter and made eye contact with Billows. I promised to come back. I needed to keep my promise. Of course, promises need to be kept. Should I prepare the book and tea from last time? Yes. 3 cups of tea, please. Which teas should I make? Cal ordered 3 types of tea and set a time for Billows to bring the teas up before turning around and heading up to the 3rd floor. Drip, drip, the rain was getting even worse. Tusk. Cal clicked his tongue and went back to sit at the same spot near the 3rd floor window and looked out. The rain is pretty strong, isn't it? Billows came up and sat across from him and put down a single cup of tea. Cal was observing Billows closely. Choi Han Becrox Ron, and finally, Billows. These were the names of the individuals who continued to show up in the novel past Volume 1. Of course, Billows only has about 2 sentences written about him in Volume 1, as the owner of the tea shop that Choi Han stops by to rest. He returns in Volume 3 to swear his loyalty to Choi Han and reveal his ambitions. Reveal. That word was important. He's always been a greedy person. Billows was different from Hong Gildong. He was not sad that he could not call his father, father, or his brother, brother. In fact, he was just trying to beat them. He wanted to make it so that they had no choice but to accept him. He wanted to create a situation where they will have no choice but to introduce him as son, to introduce him as the younger brother. He must be exhausted. Cal thought Billows lived an exhausting life. However, he did not hate that. In fact, having that type of greed made him seem more human. He didn't like the people who had the abilities and strength, but said things like, "Ho ho, I'm just going to give up. I have no choice." Why would you give up on something that could be yours? You should always take what is yours. Anyways, this person had to meet with Choi Han at least once during the time frame of Volume 1. It had to just be a short encounter. Cal could hear Billows's voice breaking his train of thought. Young master, I heard that you are going to head to the capital. Are you going to keep sitting there? Don't you have work to do? Seeing Cal pretending to be annoyed made Billows smile. He did not even try to hide it. This really was a very, very interesting young master. However, Billows could tell that he had a pretty sharp mind. I will be heading to the capital as well. I guess I will be following after you. And? Cal already knew about it. In order for Billows and Choi Han to have an encounter in Volume 3, Billows needed to head for the capital soon as well. Billows had a stoic expression as he asked Cal, who was sipping his tea and looking out the window, a question. Young master, it seems like you have changed. Seeing Cal turn to look at him, Billows started to smile. Cal motioned with his chin for Billows to continue. You seem different than your nickname. Which one? Trash? Billows could see the corners of Cal's lips starting to go up. He definitely was different. This Cal was not the Trash that he knew about. That Trash did not know how to make such an expression. It was a slightly bitter smile. Should I have gotten a bit drunk and broken a chair or something? Billows did not know what Cal was thinking. Yes, you are right. Trash. Haven't you always been a trashy young master? Did he not have any fear? Cal could not help but wonder, as Billows said such a thing to the Count's son, the firstborn of the ruler of the territory. Was Billows the one who had something to drink? But Cal did not want to fight with Billows. Billows was someone who was going to take over a large merchant guild. And Billows was being sincere. He was not smiling, he was actually sincerely asking the question, haven't you always been a trashy young master? Cal decided to answer the question. It was not a hard question to answer anyways. It was easier than figuring out how to make money when you have no money. Billows? Cal had a smile on his face, but did not laugh as he called out to Billows. You can't call your father, father. You can't call your brother, brother. Billows's gaze turned chilly. He started to take notice of the young master in front of him who had no problem touching his sore spot. Just like he had touched Cal's sore spot, he was returning the favor by touching his most painful sore spot. Cal just silently made eye contact with Billows for a bit. The rain started to pour even harder outside. Cal broke the silence and started to smile as he asked, "Are you going to keep being the bastard? Are you satisfied with that?" Billows could feel Cal's sharp gaze on him. "I know you're not." Cal leaned back on the chair and continued on with an expression that seemed to be thinking about the past. "I've acted like a trash for about 10 years, since I started when I was 8. Wow. Now that I think about it, Cal Hennetus has been doing trashy things since he was 8 years old. He started drinking when he was 15. What a guy. Cal thought about the past of the original Cal that was present in his mind and started to smile. That smile looked scary to Billows. At that moment, a small noise cut through the rain to reach Cal and Billows. Squeak, squeak. It was the sound of someone coming up the stairs. Cal looked past Billows's shoulder to the entrance of the 3rd floor. He could see someone's head. Black hair. It was Choi Han. Behind him was Ron. Cal had told a servant to tell Choi Han to come to this tea shop later in the day. Cal moved his gaze away from the two of them and started to speak to finish his conversation with Billows. Choi Han and Ron finished coming up the stairs and looked toward Cal as he started to speak. Billows. Billows's stoic face felt pretty chilly. "It's okay to throw away something you've been doing for around 10 years. Cal's eyes started to look more alive as he continued. "I can't live as a trash forever." Of course, Cal would still spend all the money he wants and do whatever pleases him, even if he wasn't a trash. He was going to live peacefully and enjoy life as the son of a rich noble. Although that was different than the direction of Billows's life, what mattered was that both of them were not going to continue living the way they had been living. "Aren't you the same?" The corner of Billows's lips started to slowly move upward. He then bowed and started to snicker. After silently snickering for a bit, Billows raised his head up and looked toward Cal. "I am indeed tired of it." Billows was laughing as he said he was tired of it. "See, I told you." Cal shrugged his shoulders and motioned for Choi Han and Ron to come over. At that moment, Billows got up from the seat and started to speak. "Young master." "What?" "I will see you at the Capitol." Cal started to frown. It would be complicated if they met at the Capitol right away. Why bother? Cal motioned for Billows to go away, and Billows respectfully bowed before leaving. Ron, Choi Han, and the descending Billows made eye contact, but they all just ignored each other. Good. Cal welcomed that scene. Choi Han and Billows just barely ran into each other. It was just like in the book. Cal started to smile at the other two people with satisfaction. "Ron, I knew you would come with him. According to Hans, Beecrox went with you too, but I presume he went back to the kitchen. He has a strong sense of responsibility for that kitchen." "Young master, are you close with that person?" Cal shrugged his shoulders at the unexpected question from Ron. "No." "I see." Cal pushed it aside as nothing important, but Ron definitely heard it. He heard Cal say that he cannot keep living as a trash. Cal stopped looking at Ron, whose response trailed of, and made eye contact with Choi Han. "I guess you can't trust the rumors." "What the hell is he saying?" Cal ignored Choi Han's words. At that moment, Billows brought up the other 2 cups of tea that Cal had ordered earlier. "Should I give these cups to these 2 gentlemen?" "Yes." Cal started to smile again. "I ordered them in advance." Cal personally picked up the teacups and put one in front of each person. In front of Choi Han was the tea he just randomly ordered from the menu. As for Ron, "I specially ordered this for you since it seems like you like it a lot." "Why else would you bring it for me every day?" It was warm lemon tea. Cal could see Ron looking odd and felt the biggest satisfaction he had felt all day. Translator's note. Hong Gildong was a Korean outlaw during the Joseon dynasty who had a similar story of being an illegitimate son. Chapter 13. Picked it up 6. But behind that satisfaction, Cal suddenly felt chills on the back of his neck. It was because Ron drank the lemon tea without any complaints. Clack. Why did the sound of the teacup being placed on the table feel so loud? Thankfully, it was not just Cal being paranoid. Choi Han, who had been quietly enjoying his tea, started to frown. "Why don't you enjoy your tea a little more quietly?" Ron held back his laughter after seeing Choi Han take a peek at Cal before speaking in a more respectful tone to him. Today, he had found a decently useful sword for Choi Han. It was a sword made by the same blacksmith as the one who made Beecrox's cooking knife. Want to try it out? I will not fight against someone who is trying to cut someone else with a cooking knife. His son, Beecrox, kept nagging Choi Han to fight him with that sword. It was because Beecrox learned a bit about Choi Han's strength from that short bout last time and wanted to find out more. However, Choi Han continued to reject him. Ho, what a funny punk. What do I need to bring a bloodied sword like you? Choi Han closed his eyes for a moment before opening them back up and responded to Beecrox as if he was confirming it for himself. I will now be someone who protects. He said even I could do it. What the heck are you saying? Ron watched his son and Choi Han's cute bickering before following Choi Han to come see Cal. He didn't expect to hear such a precious thing. I can't live as a trash forever. That was what Ron was thinking about as he drank the lemon tea, but it looked like he was glaring at Choi Han. Cal was watching that scene with satisfaction. Ron and Choi Han's relationship in The Birth of a Hero was just like this. They were always at each other's throats, but still continued to travel together. They were tied together by a contract, but they both knew they could also rely on one another. Cal thought that a lot of things got twisted because of his actions to not get beaten up, but it looked like their relationship was forming in a similar manner. It is disappointing that it got twisted a bit, but my life comes first. I can't let the novel dictate my life. For Cal, his life was the first priority. After that, it was that everybody living within his territory lived peacefully. What else could you need? Sweet teas are really the best. Ron flinched at the words that Cal happily said. The tea time for these three individuals ended in the middle of the downpour. I guess the next time I will see you will be at the Capitol. Cal shook his head toward Billows, who greeted Cal as he came down from the third floor after tea time. I will be coming here every day for a while. Is that so? To read the book? Whatever I feel like doing. Please feel free to visit whenever you would like. This tea shop is open to you at all times, young master. Billows was watching Cal, who walked by while pretending not to hear what he said, with curiosity. Ron was just quietly observing them from behind, the bastard son of the Flynn Merchant Guild. The fact that he was extremely talented made the official children resent him. That was why Billows had to come to this remote, yet profitable region in the Hennetus territory. He couldn't even use the family name of Flynn either. Ron was observing Cal being friendly with this greedy Billows and clicked his tongue. It was because he thought to himself, why does it matter to me if that puppy young master is close to Billows? Tusk. I guess even dislike creates affection. I don't want my dislike of you to turn into affection. Ron let out a sigh after seeing that the clueless Choi Han had misunderstood. Not you, punk. Ron's gaze was on Cal. Ron was planning on heading to the Capitol anyways. It was because he had a bad feeling about it. He had been thinking about it countless times ever since Choi Han came out from the Forest of Darkness and entered the city with that dense, murderous aura on him. The reason Ron had to hide out in this territory. The reason he had to escape from the Eastern continent. It looked like he needed to research the people responsible for it one more time. Wouldn't it be appropriate for me to make sure our puppy young master safely arrives at the Capitol, and safely leaves as my final duty as his servant? He claimed to others while laughing that he would be by the young master's side because he found Cal's scared expression to be funny. But would an assassin ever tell the truth to others? I should tell Beecrox to make food that our little puppy young master will like during the journey. Cal was someone he looked after even more than his own son, Beecrox. Ron knew very well about the terrible things Cal has done and the terrible personality that Cal had. However, there was someone else he knew. Ron remembered how the young Cal had consoled his father when his mother died. He also saw how Cal hated his stepmother and her family, but never caused a ruckus with them, even when he was drunk. But he definitely is still trash Tusk. 18 years. Ron had watched over Cal for too long. Cal returned to his chamber immediately after returning to the estate, only to find the two baby kittens staring up at him. Ah, I forgot about the two of you. He should have brought Choi Han, who cherishes small animals. Choi Han had returned to his own room after saying that his heart needed to become stronger to be someone who protects. When Cal laughed and asked who Choi Han was going to protect, Choi Han responded that he would let Cal know once he became stronger. That answer gave Cal the chills. Cal didn't know why someone as strong as Choi Han would want to become even stronger. Young master. Hands approached Cal as he was staring at the kittens. Young master, what do you think? Aren't they even cuter, lovelier, and more adorable now? They are so mean, though. They wouldn't even let me pet them. Ha ha. Hands crouched next to the kittens and looked up at Cal with satisfaction. His expression was so full of admiration that it surprised Cal and Ron. His expression was not related to the cuteness of the kittens. Don't you agree? This strong butler candidate seems to like cats very much. Oh, I guess so. The two kittens, that were sitting on a silk cushion that came from who knows where, definitely looked fuller and healthier. What kind of magic did this deputy butler do in that short amount of time? However, the two kittens continued to avoid Hans's gaze. It seemed to be a very stereotypical relationship between a butler and a cat. Then I will be heading out now, young master. Please call me if there is anything you need for the kitten-nims. Just go. After verifying that Ron got Hands to leave, Cal avoided the sparkling eyes of the kittens as he went into the bathroom. At that moment, the kitten's ears fell down. But then, Huo. Ron approached the kittens after getting Hands to leave. Only Ron and the two baby kittens were currently in the bedroom. You are children of the cat tribe. The golden eyes of the kittens turned sharp. However, Ron did not seem to care, as he verified that the bathroom door was closed before standing in front of the kittens. Good. There was an odd smile on Ron's face. The cat tribe was known for their sensitivity to their surroundings. The cat tribe was one that was better known in the eastern continent than the western continent. But there was no way that someone like Ron, who was involved with assassinations, would not know about them. Unlike most beast people, who became violent when they went berserk, the cat tribe became stealthier and sharper. That was why they were a scary tribe, although they were not at the level of the wolf, tiger, or lion tribes. There was only one thought on Ron's mind as he watched the two cat tribe children. It was a sudden thought, and they were still young, but I can teach them. Ron checked to make sure that the door to the bathroom was closed once again. The cat tribe put a lot of importance on relationships. If they trust someone once, they will never betray them. They were suspicious by nature, but like the wolf tribe, they valued interpersonal relationships. Children of such a tribe came looking for Cal on their own accord. Ron thought it would be nice to give his puppy young master a farewell present. Ron moved a bit closer to the cat tribe children. He then reached out to caress the head of the slightly larger silver kitten. Slap. The silver kitten slapped his hand away and quickly moved away to the corner of the room along with the red kitten. Who? Ron's eyes turned curious. These cat tribe children seemed to have already figured him out. It made sense, since they needed to quickly recognize people like him, people who were close with death in order to live for a long time. Even if cats do have 9 lives, they needed to treasure them. The cat tribe was known for their long lives as well as their stealthy night movement. In this regard, they were stealthier than anyone else. Ron started to smile. One child is fog and the other one is poison. The silver one was fog and the red one was blood or poison. Even if they did not become killers, they had the right foundations to become shadows. The silver kitten turned its head away as Ron said that, while the red kitten snorted. The two siblings had no desire to become killers who gave off such a thick scent of death. The two kittens scoffed at Ron, as if they knew about his identity as an assassin already. Once Cal came out of the bathroom, they were still sticking very close to each other as they looked up at Cal. Stop looking at me. They immediately stopped looking at him once he said that. Ron, go get me my meal from Beecrocs. Yes, young master. Ron left and Cal sat down on the couch and looked toward the two kittens. He then spoke to the two kittens who were whining in a corner far away from him. You two are part of the cat tribe, aren't you? The two kittens nodded their heads without making eye contact with Cal. Are you planning on following me? There were no responses to this question. Instead, the red kitten slowly walked over and rubbed its cheek on Cal's leg, while the silver kitten approached Cal soon after and started to tap Cal's foot with her front paw. Cal already had a plan for these two siblings. He nodded his head and made up his mind about the kittens. "Then make yourselves useful." The kittens immediately responded, "Meow, meow," answer in human language. The pupils of the silver kitten, the older sister named On, started to sparkle as she spoke. "I want to eat meat. I'm still hungry." The red kitten, the younger brother Hong, tapped Cal's leg as he added on, "I want to eat cake." Cal responded to both of them. "I will give you a lot of meat and cake, so you know what to do, right? Be useful. Be useful." The kittens immediately replied, and that was how the two siblings, who were kicked out of the Fog Cat tribe, became a part of Count Hennetus's household. 4 days later, Cal joined his family for breakfast for the first time in a while. Count Deruth looked at his son, who was wearing extremely simple clothes, and started to smile. "I guess you are leaving today." Today was the day that Cal would leave the Hennetus territory and head toward the capital. Chapter 14. Heading out, 1. "It doesn't look like you are nervous." Cal smiled instead of responding to his father's statement. Cal's complexion had gotten much better in the last few days. "It had no choice but to get better, since I didn't get beaten to a pulp. It was raining in the Hennetus territory until yesterday. If the story went as it did in the novel, Cal would have been beaten to a pulp on a rainy day. Of course, Cal was not beaten up yesterday. He could also sleep well now. This was because he could feel the indestructible shield always surrounding his heart. Knowing that he could manage to survive, even if he did something wrong to someone like Ron or Beecrox, made it easier for him to sleep at night. "Father." Cal looked at the breakfast spread that was fancier than ever before, as he asked, "It looks like the number of people in the envoy has grown again. I asked you to reduce the number." He had asked his father to decrease the number of servants accompanying him to help with his needs. He said that Hans and Ron were enough. Of course, Hans turned pale at first, however. He started to pack right away after hearing that the kittens will be traveling with them as well. "Ah, about that." For some reason, Deruth stopped his sentence without finishing. At that moment, someone else's voice interjected itself into their conversation. "That was my decision." It was the Count's wife, Violan. Her hair was perfectly formed in a bun without a single stray hair as she was looking down at her plate. She looked so similar to her son, Basin. Even the way they both did not make eye contact with Cal and had a stoic expression was the same. "We can't have someone from our family looking poor and terrible just because you want to go with such a small envoy." It was an extremely stoic voice. Violan then lifted up her gaze to look in Cal's direction before continuing on. "I am not saying you are terrible. Even I know that much." Violan hesitated for a moment after hearing Cal's response, before taking another bite of her food and continuing to speak. "People, especially nobles, care a lot about appearances." The Countess Violan. Cal quietly watched her. She was born as the eldest daughter of a poor artist's family and had dreamt about being the head of a merchant guild when she grew up. She was influenced by the luxury items being sold to the nobles and came to the Hennetus territory. Once she got here, she fell in love with the art of sculpting. Eventually, she met Count Deruth and fell in love, living as the director for the territory's cultural business operations. In Cal No, Kim Rock-Sue's opinion, she had a lot of pride for herself and her life, which was why she had a lot of pride for this family as well. Even though she knew that Cal was silently observing her, she continued on without a single change in her expression. "Art is not for those human tras, Cut off without the H on purpose. She was a bit of a coarse speaker because she worked in the merchant world for a while. Anyways, there are a lot of people who think that appearances reveal everything about a person. That was her way of telling Cal to take a lot of servants with him. Her goal was for Cal to not be judged negatively just because he only took a few servants with him. Naturally, Cal wanted to take a lot of people to do his biddings for him as well. How nice and relaxing would it be? He was finding it difficult to get changed without a servant now. Kim Rock-Sue had been in this world as Cal for only about a week, but he already could not let go of that easy life. However, a few days into Cal's future was a crazy black dragon. If he cannot release this crazy dragon in advance, It might go wild and kill a lot of people. Although Cal didn't care about what happened to other people, he still did not want to see people dying in front of his eyes. Furthermore, he also didn't want to take responsibility for those people who will be injured because of the dragon. Responsibility was a heavy burden, and for someone like Kim Rock-soo, who had taken responsibility for his own life since he was a young boy, he knew that responsibility related to people and people's lives was the scariest and heaviest burden. That was why he started to speak. Art is the mirror of the soul. Violin lifted her gaze off of her plate and looked toward Cal. This was the first time in a long while that the two of them had made eye contact with each other. You do know about that? Yes, I do know. Cal had roamed around the entire territory the last 4 days to prepare the things he needed on this trip. He just recited one of the things he saw on one of those trips. Sculpting is not just cutting into a chunk of marble. It is creating a reflection of what is in your heart. This time, it was Cal who looked at his plate and continued to eat while Violin was watching him. I read that on the plaque at the gallery. The gallery in the Hennetus territory displayed the works of new sculptors. That statement that was written on the plaque in the gallery was something that Violin had personally written. Do as you wish. I will reduce the number of people going with you, but in return, the carriage and everything in it shall be of the highest quality. That is how it should be for us Hennetus people. That is fine with me. Please give me the most expensive stuff. Great. I will make sure you have a carriage that won't even hurt your butt as you travel across bumpy roads. Only the best. Cal could not see it because he was looking at his plate, but there was a slight smile on Violin's face before it disappeared. Count Deruth, who had been watching this from the start, let out a fake cough to cover up his slowly rising smile and asked Cal, "Did you verify the information from Ainz regarding the personalities of all the nobles who will be going to the capital?" Deruth had used his own network, as well as the Information Guild, to purchase information on the other nobles, and had handed it to Ainz to give to Cal. Yes. It was pretty entertaining. It was probably difficult to purchase that file. In fact, it probably cost a fortune. Although it only had about 3 or 4 lines about each person, it was precious and expensive to purchase information on nobles. There are some petty ones, some stupid ones, some smart and scary ones, even some who are desperate for power. Looks like all sorts of people are coming this time. Of course, there were also some stupidly nice people, villains, and trash as well. You read the file I sent you. Ahem. Anyways, do as you please. But Cal— Yes, father. I heard a strange rumor. Cal's shoulders flinched just ever so slightly. Apparently the man-eating tree, that black tree, has changed. It is now a white tree with beautiful blue leaves. There are even grass growing in that spot where nothing used to grow. The place that had changed the most in the last 4 days was none other than the top of the hill in the slums. It was a location where only the black tree had resided, however. That tree turned white with blue leaves after Cal had resolved its grudge, and it was now a beautiful tree that looked almost divine. Isn't it an interesting rumor? It is. What an interesting rumor. Cal had no intentions of revealing his ancient power right now, so he simply pretended to have no knowledge of it. There was no way that Count Deruth did not know about the fact that he went to the slums. However, he would not have any knowledge of the ancient power. He would just suspect that something happened with Cal and the man-eating tree. Yes, but it isn't that big of a deal. However, you need to pay attention to rumors no matter what you do. There is nothing scarier than human eyes and mouths. However, anything that happens inside the territory is fine for members of our household. I will keep that in mind. Cal felt like he really could live a peaceful life as long as he remained in their territory. How great would it be to quickly come back from the capital and live the life of a couch potato? The luxurious breakfast that was made for Cal, who was leaving for the capital, finally came to an end. He received goodbyes from the Count and Countess, who couldn't watch him leave because they had work to do, and then made eye contact with his siblings, who were awkwardly standing there. What? His younger brother, Basin, just shook his head at Cal's question. His younger sister, Lily, slowly approached him. 7 years old. This youngest sibling of his was 11 years apart from him. Please have a safe trip. Thanks, you be safe here too. Lily vigorously nodded her head. Yes, she then quietly looked at Cal. Cal just casually asked in response to her gaze, "Should I buy you a present while on my trip?" Really? As I thought. She wanted a present. Cal nodded his head as he watched the surprised, amazed, and happy expression all taking turns showing up on Lily's face. Yes, what would you like? A sword? What? Please buy me a sword. A 7-year-old wants a sword. Seeing the shock on Cal's face, Basin started to speak. Hi, young Nim, Lily's dream these days is to become a swordsman. Is that so? Cal seriously looked toward Lily. The people of this household all had long arms, long legs, and a good physique. Lily was only 7 years old, but she was tall for her age and could easily become a good swordsman if she put in the effort. I guess it would suit her. Lily's eyes started to sparkle. I will buy you an expensive one. Lily started to smile as she lowered her head in embarrassment instead of responding. Cal did not see this, as he looked toward his 15-year-old younger brother who was looking at him. You want something too? A fountain pen. Got it. The breakfast came to an end once he got the list of presents from his siblings. Cal's expression was odd as he stood in front of the carriage that would take him to the capital. How odd. He had an odd expression as he asked the person standing next to him. Why is it that their seat is better than my seat? Cal was looking at the expensive and soft cushion next to him, as well as the 2 kittens sitting on the cushion. Young master, shouldn't our precious cats travel comfortably on this trip? They are so small and precious. Ainz answered as he put the special treats he prepared for the cats in the carriage as well. Cal and Ron both had blank expressions on their faces. It's because he has not seen them create fog and fill it with poison. Cal called on and hung to an empty corner of the garden 3 days ago. What can you do? In response to his question, On created fog while in her cat form, while Hong used a bit of his blood to spread poison into the air. Of course, On was able to control the poisonous fog to prevent Cal from dying. Furthermore, the poison Hong could spread was only at the level of paralysis right now. You two are quite useful. On and Hong proudly answered back after hearing Cal's praise. We were able to run away because of our poisonous fog. We are quite useful. Starting from that day, On and Hong were able to eat delicious food all day long. Naturally, Ainz was happy to provide for them. Young master, I will be sitting with the driver up top. Okay. Ron jumped up next to the driver, and Cal was about to board as well when Choi Han approached him. Cal Nim. Choi Han said that he did not want to call Cal young master, instead choosing to call him Cal Nim. What? Is it okay for me to not be in the same carriage protecting you? Cal's expression turned like he had eaten some bitter persimmon. Is there a reason to do that? That was what Cal's expression was saying, and Choi Han didn't say anything else, instead just nodding his head. Cal started to squint his eyes while watching Choi Han walk away. It's really weird. Choi Han's eyes were still not very clear. His mind still seemed to be full of anger and thoughts of revenge. When Cal mentioned yesterday that they had sent people to Harris Village, he could see the anger in Choi Han's eyes, but he felt a little different than before. He wasn't in complete despair like in the novel, thinking something along the lines of, the world does not want me to be happy. How could they kill all of my loved ones? That was why it was weird. He recovered pretty quickly. He seemed to be at the stage in the novel when he was traveling with Beecrox, Rosalind, and Locke, with a sword in his heart but a calm demeanor on the outside. He let it be since it wasn't bad, but Cal had an oddly bitter feeling in his mouth. It was at that moment. I don't think this is your spot. The leader of the envoy, the vice captain of the territory's Night Brigade, approached Choi Han and started to speak. The vice captain looked at Choi Han from head to toe before smirking, like he was looking down at Choi Han. I knew we would have at least one person like this. Cal clicked his tongue. Choi Han had hidden his abilities to that of an average level. The problem was that Choi Han was the first person Cal brought to the Count's estate as a guest, and the fact that Count Daruth treated him like an important guest. Adding on the fact that he was going as part of Cal's guards, this time made some people start to dislike and oppose him. They didn't annoy him visibly because he was still Cal's guest, but there were a lot of things they were secretly doing to annoy Choi Han. Young master, I do not think Choi Han Nim is getting along with the other knights who will be going with us to the capital. Is that so? Yes. I think the vice captain is responsible for it. I got it, Hands. You can stop worrying about it. Cal thought about Hans's report and felt bad, not for Choi Han, but for the vice captain. Soon enough, he'll realize that his eyes were not just at the ground, but completely underground. It'll be fine as long as he doesn't do anything to get beaten up. Cal did not choose to try to resolve their issues. The vice captain will not be able to sleep properly once he sees Choi Han's real skills. How could he sleep when he is extremely scared? Young master, shall we leave now? The vice captain asked Cal, and Cal closed the carriage door as he answered. Yes, let's go. 15 soldiers, 5 knights, and 1 special guard. Cal's envoy, which consisted of this protection squad and then some other people, finally started to head toward the capital. Of course, as with most fantasy world travels, it was not a very uneventful trip. Nobody dared to touch Cal's carriage in the Hennetus territory. The carriage did not have the flag that represented the family, but the carriage itself had the golden turtle, the symbol of the Hennetus family, drawn on it. It was representative of the Hennetus family's love for wealth and longevity. However, as soon as they left the Hennetus territory, they ran into a situation. As expected, they really do show up. While they were rushing through a mountain range, tens of people suddenly showed up in the valley. Pay the toll if you want to cross this mountain. Take out everything you have. If we find anything after you claim to have taken everything out, it will be 1 slap for every 1 bronze we find. Yes, it was the bandits. There were bound to be bandits in a fantasy story, but the fact that there were tens of them was surprising. They probably relied on their numbers to attack this carriage, which only had 5 knights. Cal looked toward the Kittenon, who was yawning, and asked, "You think they can't see the symbol on my carriage?" "I guess so." "Idiots, beginners." Cal nodded his head at Hong's assessment. He was not afraid of bandits. Why would he be knock-knock? The knocking came from the small window by the driver's seat before the window slightly opened, and Ron looked inside. "Young master, it looks like we will need to take a break. There seem to be quite a lot of rabbits here." "Rabbits?" Cal shook for a moment. Ron went, before smiling and added on. This rabbit is different from the rabbit I was going to catch for you, young master. Of course, these rabbits will not be caught by me, but by other people." Cal was being protected by someone who was scarier than the bandits. He listened to the sound of the bandits' screams coming from outside the carriage as he started to calculate the time. About a day and a half. In about a day and a half, they would arrive around the area where the Black Dragon was being tortured. It was earlier than when Choi Han arrived in the novel. This was the reason he had made them rush forward without taking any breaks. Chapter 15. Heading out too. In order to achieve the results he wanted, Cal had to choose to camp outside. There were no villages along the way until the village near the hidden cave of the Black Dragon. Meow. The red cat tribe Kitten Hong meowed and wagged his tail, as if he was excited. It was because of the delicious smell filling the area. The joy of the day comes from eating a delicious dinner. That was what Cal was thinking. A warm dinner was the signal to end the long and tiring day and start a relaxing night. Tonight's main course was a soup with rabbit meat. Damn it. It was not Ron's doing. Cal turned his gaze to the side. Choi Han, the person who had caught the rabbits, was happily eating his soup. Meow, tap, tap. On and Hong were tapping on his leg, asking him to give it to them if he didn't want it. Hans had a wide smile on his face as he cautiously approached the 2 children. "Would our precious kittenims like to eat the jerky that I prepared for you? It is very healthy without any salt or preservatives." Naturally, On and Hong ignored Hans. Hans, who did not know they were part of the cat tribe, found that sass to be cute as well and continued to linger around them. Contrary to the fact that they had their first battle, it was a very relaxed and peaceful environment. However, the atmosphere around the night seemed to be a bit odd. They kept peeking toward Choi Han, who was eating his soup next to Cal. The vice captain seemed to be full of agony. Tusk. Cal clicked his tongue. Cal's party had to fight off tens of bandits today. The one to handle most of those bandits was naturally Choi Han. He did not kill the bandits. However, he had no issues cutting off a limb or leaving them a deep scar. Not only that, he did it in an unbelievable speed, too. "Young master, the battle is over." The vice captain had reported this to Cal with a shocked expression on his face. He had not expected it to end so quickly. The bandits were ones who were pushed out of power in a different area nearby. The bandits they had thought were stupid were at their limits and felt that they could handle 5 knights because of their numbers. Unfortunately, their first target ended up being Cal's carriage with Choi Han. The reason the vice captain's face was completely pale was not because of the strength of the bandits. Choi Han approached next to the vice captain and added on, "It was a light battle, not even enough for a warm-up." Cal could see the vice captain slightly flinch after hearing Choi Han's words. He could also see Choi Han smirking while looking at the vice captain flinch. He really isn't the type to let people do as they please with him. There was no way that someone like Choi Han, who had no issues beating up the Count's son, would be nice and let people just continue to mess with him. "Do you have no appetite?" Cal seemed to be frustrated as Ron approached him with his usual benign smile. He looked back and forth between the rabbit soup and Ron before suddenly realizing something. This old man enjoyed making fun of him. "Yes, none at all." Choi Han responded to that statement. "Are you feeling unwell?" "No, nothing like that." "I would have no issues if you caught anything other than rabbits." Cal looked toward Choi Han and waved his hand to tell Choi Han to not mind him. However, Choi Han continued to look toward Cal with a serious gaze. "What are you looking at?" "Was that your first time experiencing a battle?" Cal just casually responded back to Choi Han, who asked with a serious expression. "What battle? You mean with the bandits earlier?" "Yes. Of course, I've never seen so many bandits before." "I see." Choi Han nodded his head and quietly mumbled to himself. "Must have been your first time facing potential death." "Ha!" One of the soldiers let out a gasp. "Ha!" Cal let out a loud gasp as if he was completely shocked. "First time facing potential death, my ass. Do you know how nervous I've been the last few days because of you?" That wasn't even it. Ron's smile as Choi Han brought back the rabbits, the sight of Beecrox sharpening his cooking knife. Cal was also nervous because of them. Cal started to think about all of the nervous moments he has had since they left the Hennetus territory. Now I really have no appetite. He had lost all of his appetite. Clang. The spoon in Cal's hand just fell onto the soup bowl. That was why he didn't realize that the soldiers were looking at him with an understanding gaze, or that Choi Han had stopped paying attention to everyone around him as he nostalgically thought about the past. Cal Nim. What? Cal was thinking about how he didn't need to be so nervous anymore because he managed to avoid getting beaten up and also got the indestructible shield, when Choi Han's voice snapped him back to reality. Why does he keep talking to me? The first time is always difficult to handle. What are you talking about? As Cal stoically asked back, Choi Han had a slight smile on his face before he asked in a stoic expression. The gaze in his eyes was extremely serious. Cal Nim, do you not study any martial arts? No need. Shouldn't you at least have the strength to protect yourself? There was concern in that seriousness. Cal wondered why Choi Han was suddenly becoming so serious, but decided to answer the question anyways. I have plenty of ways already. Cal took his gaze off of Choi Han and looked around. 15 soldiers who were stronger than him, and 5 knights who would do well no matter where they went. There were only a few servants aside from them, but Ron, Beecrox, the 2 kittens, and even Deputy Butler Hands were much stronger than himself. Cal made eye contact with each of the people before turning back to Choi Han to ask, "You can see them too, right?" This is the protection for a wealthy count's son. Cal started to smile. He knew that they would all protect him. Of course, he wasn't sure about Ron or Beecrox, but they would at least prevent him from getting killed by someone. And they are not the only protection. Cal decided to be a little more honest to Choi Han, who was sitting there looking at him. He patted his heart as he answered. "I trust my heart. I will live." Of course, the indestructible shield surrounding his heart will protect him. Well, as long as he avoided people like Choi Han, that is. Choi Han looked toward Cal with shaky eyes. Meow, meow. What are you doing?" On and Hong approached Cal and started to push on his legs with their small paws. The claws on their paws hurt, making Cal frown, But the cat tribe siblings stopped eating and started to rub their cheeks on Cal's leg. Clack! Choi-Han put down his empty soup bowl and stood up from his seat. I'll be practicing with my sword now. Right after eating? I feel like I need to get stronger, scary punk. Are you trying to get strong enough to blow the whole earth away? Cal turned away in disgust. At that time, B. Crocs approached him with a new dish. Please enjoy. Oh, thanks. Cal looked at the plate that was filled with the highest quality spices and highest quality beefsteak and started to smile. Bitter food and drinks like lemonade are best to restore your appetite. This was the first time Ron had handed him a lemonade since their interaction at the tea shop. Cal just ignored the lemonade because he was excited about the steak. If everyone has finished eating, we will start our evening training session soon. Cal could hear the vice captain's loud voice and started to think. The vice captain must have been motivated by Choi-Han. Cal looked at the fired-up knights and soldiers as he chowed down on the steak and even the rabbit soup as well. The rabbit soup was pretty good once he tried it. Of course, he adamantly declined the jerky the kittens offered him. There was no seasoning on it, so he wouldn't even touch it. 3 days. Cal calculated as they entered the village. The Black Dragon will cause a Monar explosion in 3 days. They were now in a Viscount's territory that was right next to the Hennetus territory. A villa belonging to the Viscount was built in the mountain on the right side of this village a few years ago. Naturally, while it was labeled as the Viscount's villa on the outside, in reality, it belonged to Marquis Stan, the person responsible for making the Black Dragon go crazy. The Viscount of this territory was nothing more than a dog of the Marquis, and in the mountain behind the villa hides the cave with the Black Dragon. The Black Dragon causes a Monar explosion and sends the cave and the mountain flying. Cal looked at the small peak to the right of the mountain he crossed and clicked his tongue, Venyan of Marquis Stan's family. Cal was thinking about the Marquis's second son. He was a crazy psycho who crippled his own older brother to rise to the position of heir. That psycho visits the villa every so often to torture the Black Dragon for fun. Tusk. Hands flinched at Cal clicking his tongue and quickly brought Choi-Han over and started to speak. Young master, I will take Choi-Han Nim and quickly look for an inn. Please wait a moment. The carriage was currently stopped outside of the village entrance. Whatever. We will be right back. Cal nodded his head at Hans's statement while observing Choi-Han. He had a nostalgic look in his eyes. Just why would Choi-Han fight with an existence that caused a Monar explosion? It was because he could not throw this small and quiet village away. Harris Village. This village was similar to the village that taught him about both love and hate. That was why he made a move to save the lives of these village people that he did not even know. Cal started to frown as he called Choi-Han over. Choi-Han? Yes, hurry back. Ah, a small gasp came out of Choi-Han's mouth. This 17-year-old boy who had lived for tens of years started to have an innocent smile on his face as he nodded his head. Yes, sir, I will be right back. Cal motioned as if he was annoyed, but Choi-Han bowed before quickly starting to walk toward the village with Hands. Cal, who preferred this focused Choi-Han to the one who had a blank expression, continued to watch him before suddenly starting to frown. He could see a carriage quickly heading in their direction. I have a bad feeling about this. Cal felt like someone with extremely sweaty hands was handing him a poisoned apple. It was a really bitter feeling. The cause of that bitter feeling was soon to be revealed. Cal could not believe it. He could see an old man who could not manage to avoid the carriage fall down on the road. He could also see Choi-Han rushing toward the old man, as well as the carriage continuing to travel down the road like it was not going to stop. Such a cliché. There was a flag hanging on that carriage, a red snake. It was the symbol of Marquis Stan. Cal's eyes started to shake. It was about to happen. An incident was about to happen. Bang! Choi-Han flung himself to rescue the old man, and the momentum forced him to smash into a building wall. Only then did the black carriage belonging to Marquis Stan finally stop. Sigh. Cal let out a sigh as he opened the carriage door. It looked like he had no choice but to head over to the site of that cliché event. Chapter 16. Heading out 3. Young master, are you heading over there? Ron approached him as soon as he stepped out of the carriage. Who will go if I don't? Ron and the vice captain started to chase after Cal, who was heading toward the incident location without any hesitation. The two surrounded Cal as if the world was going to end soon, but Cal did not care. A man slowly walked out of the other carriage. Venyan Stan. Cal started to frown deeply as soon as he saw him. There was only one line in the file that his father, Count Daruth, gave him regarding Venyan Stan's personality. A typical and authoritative noble Cal, well, Kim Rok-Soo, could also use the information from The Birth of a Hero to evaluate Venyan, your typical villain. However, it was quite a headache to meet that typical villain in real life than it was as a character in a novel. Cal could not beat someone up for doing something bad or because he didn't like them like Choi Han could. The situation had already escalated a bit by the time Cal arrived. In those few short moments, Choi Han had already become so angry that his shoulders were shaking violently. How can you get in the way of a noble person like that? What the hell are you saying when someone could have gotten hurt? Who was in the way? This only happened because you were driving the carriage like a maniac. Peasants should move out of the way when they see a noble's carriage. It is not my fault that this peasant was so stupid he just stood there without moving. Choi Han was arguing with one of Venyan's lackeys, and Hans, who had been standing next to Choi Han, had a frown on his face as he approached Cal and whispered into his ear. Choi Han Nim seems to be extremely agitated. Hans seemed to have already realized that the owner of the carriage belonged to the Marquia's family. He also seemed to have realized that the person standing behind that lackey was none other than Venyan Stan. That narcissist probably only stepped out of the carriage because he saw the symbol of the Hennetus family on Cal's carriage. Enough. Venyan, the man with beautiful blonde hair, gently spoke to his lackey. As soon as Venyan's words came out, the lackey quickly moved behind Venyan, as if he had never been angry in the first place. Only Choi Han was left huffing and puffing while consoling the scared old man. Tusk. Cal clicked his tongue. The lackey wasn't actually angry. He was pretty far away from Cal's carriage, but just like Venyan, he probably saw the golden turtle on Cal's carriage. That was why he was exaggerating, being extremely loud while scolding Choi Han, so that it will draw Cal out to the scene. Hans knew what the lackey was doing, which led him to frown while waiting for Cal to arrive. Cal glared at Venyan and the lackey before putting a hand on Choi Han's shoulder. You too? But Cal knew why Choi Han was angry. This place was very similar to Harris Village, his second home. He was angry at the fact that these people put someone else's life in danger, but didn't show even an iota of remorse, or any signs of apologizing. However, the victim in this, the old man, was unable to get angry. It was because he did not have anything to support him like Choi Han had. They could have used another road, but decided not do so and could have hurt someone. How can I just let this be? Choi Han. Cal put some pressure to push down on Choi Han's shoulder. Calm down. Choi Han's black pupils looked directly at Cal. Cal could see the angry Choi Han, no, to be specific, the Choi Han that was being held down by the memories of Harris Village, starting to calm down. After verifying that Choi Han was calming down, Cal turned his gaze to look at Venyan Stan. Beautiful blonde hair and a slight smile on his lips. Perfectly ironed attire without a single wrinkle. Boots without a single scuff mark. However, the thing that caught Cal's attention was the small amount of red at the tip of Venyan's white dress shirt. Some blood must have landed on him while he was enjoying watching the black dragon being tortured. A crazy bastard. This Venyan Stan was someone who enjoyed his meal while watching the torturer whip the black dragon until it was covered with blood. Nice to meet you. Are you someone from Count Hennetus's household? Yes. Nice to meet you, young Master Venyan Stan. As expected, the other party knew of Cal. Venyan was not someone who had an easy life in reaching the heir position. The problem was that he was quite a bit rude. Venyan Stan was the type that could gently smile at you, but you still feel nothing but disgust for him. I have not had any reason to come to this area, and have only heard stories, but I heard there was someone in the Count's family who was a free spirit and did not seem like a noble. Venyan smiled as he observed Cal. It was a very annoying look, as if he was trying to start something. I heard that young Master Basin Henetus had been taking part in all of the gatherings of the nobles since last year. Why ask something you already know about? Cal was not talented in these kinds of small talk. That was why he smiled brightly and respectfully answered. Yes, I am indeed that trash. Trash. The moment that word personally came out of Cal's mouth, Venyan's lackey flinched. One of the trashiest of all of the trash, probably. The corner of Venyan's mouth started to twist up. His expression seemed to say that he had never seen such a crazy person before, but Cal did not care. Marquis Stan was someone who was strong enough to lead a faction, but Venyan could not do as he pleased with other nobles until he was officially proclaimed as the future successor of the Marquis title. A Marquis would normally officially proclaim a child as their successor in order to provide protection to that child, as well as have that child start building their network at an early age. However, Marquis Stan had not done that yet. There are still 3 other children. Venyan had 2 younger sisters and 1 younger brother. The Marquis enjoyed watching the competition between the siblings. Venyan enjoyed watching the Black Dragon being tortured in order to distress from the competition with his siblings. The Marquis considered the competition between his children to be like an exciting sport. Naturally, the crippled eldest son was the result of this competition. It was a completely crazy household. Our Henetus family is an extremely great family in comparison. You're a very interesting person. Venyan just casually responded to Cal's statement. The wealthy count, who resided in the outskirts of the Northeast without being a part of any faction. Who would try to develop a relationship with that family? If anything, people would just be greedy to take that land as their own. However, Venyan didn't like Cal as a person. The trash eldest son and a pretty smart younger son. Knowing about Cal and Basin's relationship made Venyan think of his own older brother when looking at Cal. However, Venyan kept up the act of a proper noble and handed the reins of this incident to Cal. An unexpected obstacle has made me waste time, but I guess it was a pretty good thing since I got to make your acquaintance. Young Master Cal. An unexpected obstacle. Venyan was referring to the old man. He was disappointed at the fact that his time was wasted because of this old man and wanted to finish this on a happy note. But it looks like you need to teach your subordinate to clearly distinguish between the people who have the right to travel across this road and this earth, as well as the people who have the right to make them stop. As a well-known Marquis's unofficial successor, this was the most he could do to the trash of a count's family. His tone was saying that, although they were both young masters, their statuses were completely different. Of course, Cal was quietly listening, but he wasn't the type to pay attention to a dog's yapping. Venyan finished what he had to say and looked toward the most uncomfortable-looking person in the group. Plop. The old man kneeled on the ground once Venyan looked in his direction and bowed his head. My apologies. The hands of the old man, who was bowing so low that his head could touch the ground, were shaking. Choi Han's hands were shaking as he watched the old man apologize. Each territory's residents would be shaped by the personality of the reigning noble. With the Viscount of this territory being one of Marquis Stan's dogs, they were also very authoritative and looked down on the commoners. The corners of Venyan's lips started to go up. He was satisfied. After observing Venyan, Cal called out to him. Young Master Venyan. Once Venyan turned his head, Cal asked him a question. Are you done? I am. Cal crouched down. His expensive clothes started to touch the ground. He then looked toward the shaking hands of the old man. It'll be dangerous if this continues. Cal was certain that he heard it. Hoo-woo-woo. The sound of Choi Han taking a deep breath. That had to be the sound of him holding back his anger. The moment Cal heard it, he could feel chills on the back of his neck and felt that if this continued any longer, the one to get beaten to a pulp would not be himself, but Venyan. It didn't matter to him whether or not Venyan was beaten to a pulp, but Choi Han could not punch a noble while he was associated with him. Cal put a hand on the old man's shoulder. Venyan's eyebrow started to twitch. A noble's hand was on a commoner's shoulder. Old man. The old man seemed to be extremely shocked as he lifted his head to look at Cal. Why, yes, Cal casually asked. Where's the bar? Excuse me. Where can I get some delicious alcohol? As you've heard, I am trash. I don't feel refreshed in the morning if I don't have something to drink. I need to drink to make sure tomorrow is another great day. So, Cal lifted the old man's upper body up. Venyan, who had been watching Cal, quietly judged Cal and shook his head after hearing Cal mention alcohol. Lead the way. Making eye contact with the shaking pupils of the old man, Cal started to frown as he continued. Are you not going to get up? The old man hesitated and looked back and forth between Venyan and Cal. Cal just ignored him as he got back up and reached out the hand that had been on a commoner's shoulder toward Venyan. It was nice meeting you today, young Master Venyan. Cal was asking for a handshake. Venyan quietly stood there and looked at Cal. At that moment, one of Venyan's servants urgently approached them and whispered quietly to Venyan. However, it was loud enough for everyone to hear. Young Master, we have been delayed enough already. Do not interrupt a conversation between nobles. Venyan looked down at his servant without a smile on his face, and the servant quickly bowed. Venyan smiled once again as he grabbed Cal's hand. I will just be on my way then, as I am very busy. He then let go. It was a very short handshake. Cal started to smile like a drunk person as he responded back. If we happen to meet in the capital, let's have a drink together. I do not think we would appreciate the same thing, but sure. Venyan's smile was lukewarm. Cal decided to do something big to finish this conversation. Yes. Based on our interaction today, it truly looks like only young Master Venyan deserves to be the future patriarch of the Stan family. You are a very cool person. Patriarch. That word made Venyan's eyes get cloudy. As Cal expected, Venyan started to smile brightly once again and offered praises for Cal as well. Young Master Cal is also a very interesting and free-spirited person. Let us meet again in the future. No, I have no desire to see you ever again. Even if I do, it will be from far, far away. Cal hid his true feelings and nodded his head. Venyan quickly got back on his carriage as if he was truly busy and disappeared. Cal watched the carriage disappear before patting Choi Han's shoulder. Half of the nobles are like that. Choi Han's shoulders flinched at Cal's words, but Cal was already crouching in front of the old man again. Old man, you can't get up. Did you hurt your leg? Pat, pat. Cal inspected the old man's body as he said that. He did not seem to be injured. Cal started to observe the man with a confused expression. He then called Choi Han over. Choi Han. Instead of responding, Choi Han just looked at the back of the crouching Cal. You take this old man home. No, I am okay. That bar you were talking about. No need. I'm not in the mood to drink. Cal stopped the old man from trying to lead him to a bar and looked toward Choi Han, who was standing next to him. Since you saved him, might as well do it all the way and take him safely back home. Choi Han's mouth opened and closed a couple of times, but he could not say anything. At that moment, the old man's voice filled Cal's ears. My place sells alcohol. Old man, your place was a bar. Cal's eyes showed that he was really surprised. The old man awkwardly smiled, but continued to speak in a slightly more relaxed expression. Yes, sir. It is this village's only inn. It has a bar and a restaurant as well. Since it is the only inn, that must be the best place. Hands. Even without Cal saying anything else, Hands quickly approached the old man and helped him up, before starting to ask about the inn. Once the two of them started to move, things started to get rowdy around them. Ron quickly approached Cal and brushed the dirt off Cal's clothes. The vice captain and the rest of the group headed toward the village entrance. The only people left there were Cal and Choi Han. Cal Nim. What? Are you not angry? About what? Choi Han hesitated for a moment and could not continue speaking. Cal shrugged his shoulders as he started to speak. The fact that he looked down on me. Or how he made such an unbelievable statement to you. How he almost killed that old man and, instead of apologizing, said that he was an obstacle. Cal's voice was calm and firm. He did not seem angry at all. In fact, it sounded indifferent. Cal continued to speak. You have to keep moving when you see someone in front of you. Why didn't you try to avoid him? Don't you see that you could have hurt the old man? How can you casually say that a person was an obstacle when you almost killed him? Choi Han paid attention to Cal, who was looking at a faraway mountain range. At the same time, he made sure to listen to Cal's every word. Cal continued to speak firmly. Venyan, why is the old man apologizing to you? You should properly apologize to him. Cal could speak like Choi Han, and there were times he wanted to do that. But I am not someone who can speak like that, nor do I want to. I'm also not that angry, but this was not the time. Cal knew that this was one of the things that made Choi Han look cool, but he did not want to look cool like that. The old man wasn't injured, and he didn't do anything that would get the blade pointed toward his family. The fact that he himself looked bad would be beneficial to Basin, so it was good anyways. Also, Cal was someone who always returned the favor, no matter how long it took. If someone looked down on him or does something to him, he will always get his revenge. That bastard will probably soon be kicked out of his house. Huh? Choi Han could tell that the bastard Cal was referring to was Venyan. That was why Choi Han showed a rare, shocked expression on his face as he looked toward Cal. Cal had a mischievous smile on his face. The two kittens, who were approaching him silently, halted their movement. Cal's smile grew larger as he continued to look toward the mountain to the right of the village. He thought to himself, the thing he could not tell Choi Han, I plan on snatching that bastard's dragon. Once the dragon is gone, Venyan will have to face the wrath of the Marquis, and would have a new obstacle in his way of becoming the family patriarch. Shouldn't someone who doesn't know when to stop on the road face at least one obstacle? Cal was willing to put a large obstacle in Venyan's way. Of course, it would be done in secret. He casually spoke to Choi Han, who was looking at him with curiosity. If you're curious, you can help me out. Whatever it is, I definitely want to help. Choi Han started to smile as well. It was a pretty evil smile for such a good-natured person, but the kittens were intrigued by that smile as well. Cal looked toward the mountain that was supposed to blow up in 3 days' time and started to mumble. The fact that he was looked down upon by Venyan, as well as the blood on Venyan's sleeves and the sight of the old man bowing to Venyan were all still on Cal's mind. You won't regret it. He will be able to pay him back for it. You definitely won't regret it. Chapter 17. Heading out 4. Young master, this is the best room we have. Seems acceptable. The old man led Cal's group to his inn. The exterior of the inn looked as rustic as the village, but it had everything you would need, probably because the merchants visiting the Hennetus territory stayed at this inn on their travels. This is the first time we have had a noble staying with us. Please look favorably upon us, even if it is lacking quite a bit, and just consider it as a place where lesser beings live. Cal stared at the old man. He seemed more comfortable than when talking to Venyan Stan, but he still seemed scared at the fact that a noble would be staying at his inn. It was fine for him to have a little bit of anxiety, but too much was uncomfortable for Cal as well. It's no good like this. Cal patted the old man's shoulder and tried to calm him down. Old man, relax. I don't like people who put themselves down like that. This is the place that people who come and go from our territory stay to rest. There is no way such a place will be lacking. The old man's pupils started to shake. He wet his upper lip with his tongue before finally starting to speak after a bit of hesitation. Young master, are there a lot of good people like you in the Hennetus territory? What the hell are you talking about? Excuse me? I am the biggest trash in our territory. Almost anybody you find will have a better personality than me. Ah, the old man let out a gasp. On and Hong, who had taken control of the couch in the room, were meowing and shaking their heads, but nobody seemed to notice. You can go do what you have to do. The old man bowed deeply at Cal's dismissal and left the room. Cal found it annoying that the old man still seemed to be stiff, but decided not to care. Knock, knock, knock. Someone else was knocking on the door. Come in. The door opened, and Deputy Butler Hands brought a small box inside. Young master, you asked only for this box, right? Yes. Hand it over. Deputy Butler Hands showed curiosity as he handed the box to Cal. It was the only luggage Cal personally brought with him. He would just assume there was alcohol or snacks inside if it was a normal box. But this box was not normal. It was the highest quality magic box with a magic lock on it. The seal on the magic box was the logo of the Flynn Merchant Guild, one of the 3 large merchant guilds, and one that had an intimate relationship with the Hennetus family. Cal casually commented while looking at Ainz. Isn't a butler not supposed to show their emotion on their face? Especially curiosity. One of the proper etiquettes of a butler is to show all of their emotions to their master. Funny man? I guess I am a bit funny. For someone who didn't want to go to the capital other than for the kittens, Ainz was a bit impudent, but Cal still thought he was much more personable than the other butler candidates. Seeing Ainz starting to get used to him, Cal just responded like normal. Get out. Yes, sir. And Ainz left immediately, as usual. However, he had a question about their travels before closing the door. Will we be staying here for 3 days? Yes, take care of everything. Yes, sir, Ainz responded as he closed the door. Other than the vice-captain taking charge of the envoy's safety, Ainz was responsible for everything else. However, he did not show any struggles in doing so and efficiently took care of everything. He seems like a good butler. The silver kitten said that as she approached Cal. Cal nodded his head. Then the red kitten, Hong, followed behind. It doesn't seem that hard for him either. Cal agreed with that statement as well. Ron was one thing, but other than Ron, Ainz was the one who had the least difficulty dealing with Cal. He was scared of Cal, but did not find him to be difficult. He's a pretty decent butler. Cal brushed aside the kittens coming toward him and opened the box. The method of opening a box with a magic lock was simple. Cal's fingerprint. That was the only key that could open this particular box. Cal put his index finger on the center of the magic seal. Beep. Click. The box made a small noise before opening. Inside the box were the items Cal had prepared during the 4 days prior to leaving for the capital. I'm really curious about what this is. Really curious. Cal ignored the 2 pairs of golden pupils looking at him and just vaguely answered. Things that will help rescue a poor soul, screw over some douchebags, and prevent me from getting hurt. On and Hong looked up at him with curiosity, but Cal just caressed the items inside the box with satisfaction. He recalled the conversation he had with Billows, the Flynn Merchant Guild's bastard, before he left. Young master, just where do you plan on using these things? I don't see why I have to explain that to you. I see. But it is going to cost quite a bit to purchase all of these items. Is it possible to rent them? For you, of course, it is possible. The majority of the items inside the box were magic tools. Cal had expected them to be expensive, but it really was too much. Cal had to use up all of the allowances he had earned from his father. He also had to return it all to Billows once he got to the capital. Annoying. I didn't want to get involved with him at the capital, but I have no other choice. 2 of the items are not able to be rented out to outsiders. I rented them in my name for you. So you must return these to me at the capital. In person, sure. Cal grabbed one of the items in the box. It was a round, black orb with a lot of symbols engraved on it. The red kitten Hong put his paws on Cal's knee to ask, really curious about this. A mana disturbance tool. It is worth almost 1 billion gallon. Gasp. Both On and Hong let out a gasp. It cost 20 million gallons just to rent it. Hong slowly lowered the paws that were on Cal's knee before going toward the corner of the bed with his sister On. They were trying to keep as much distance as possible from the black orb. Cal recalled the information about the orb. Billows had found exactly the item Cal was looking for. It causes a disturbance in the flow of mana within a certain range, making all magic tools stop working. It is also sturdy enough that, even if something like a mountain blowing up happens, it will not break. Something like a surveillance tool will break right away then, of course. However, you do need to install this 27 hours in advance. It is created to slowly infuse a force that will disrupt the mana flow so that it will not be noticed by mages. How long will it last? 40 minutes. Isn't it great? Of course, if there are mages nearby, they will be able to resolve the issue within 5–10 minutes. I will keep that in mind. The corner of Cal's lips started to go up. It was the most expensive item he rented from Billows, but he will have many uses for it on this trip. I really like how durable it is. The Flynn Merchant Guild was a very useful place. Cal smiled with satisfaction before throwing this black orb, that was smaller than the size of a toddler's fist, toward the kittens crouching in the corner. Huck! Meow. One of them gasped, while the other meowed and avoided the black orb, but in the end, they had to sit quietly in front of Cal with the black orb in front of their eyes. "You know how to read a map, right?" Ainz tapped her tail on the ground in response. "Of course. We were potential successors to the Fog Cat tribe at one point?" "Right. My sister is right." Cal took out another important item, a map, from the box. It wasn't very detailed, just having the general landmarks around the Hennetus territory. Most of the merchants going to and from the Hennetus territory used this map. "We are in this village right now." Cal pointed to the mountain to the right of the village. "You see this mountain?" "I see it. Very easy to see." This was what Billows had said. "Ah. The range is similar to the durability. One mountain. If you go toward this mountain, you will see a villa in the distance. Behind that is a cave. There were no mages around the Black Dragon right now. The people of the Magic Tower respected dragons as the greatest magic race, and did not wish for humans to torture and domesticate a dragon. They considered it to be a big disgrace to magic. The people around the cave and the villa were knights and soldiers that the Marquis trusted, as well as the people who do the dirty work for them. "Don't go near there at all. You cannot get caught." Cal had heard about these two children's situation. That was why he was confident they could do this, but he still wanted to give them a warning. It would be bad if their curiosity led them to go around the cave. "There is something being tortured in there. We're going to rescue him, so you have to be careful." "Something?" "Yes. It is even younger than you, Hong. Even younger than me." "Yes, 4 years old." Of course, that 4-year-old was strong enough to send On or Hong flying once the Moner restriction chains were removed. "We're going to save him." On and Hong's eyes lit up as they pressed down on the bed with their paws. "Save? Sure. Just stay in your cat form and go bury this orb in the mountain without getting caught." There should be close to no chance of getting caught in their cat forms. Cal put the black orb in a small pouch before putting it over On's neck like a necklace. "Where should we bury it?" "Anywhere on the mountain." "Really, anywhere?" "Yes." The siblings looked at each other before nodding their heads. "Easy. We even managed to get past our cat tribe's elders to escape." Cal agreed with them. "It should be easy for the two of you. You two have enough skill for it." "I wouldn't ask someone useless to do something like this in the first place." The two kittens looked up at Cal with their golden pupils again. This pair of siblings, who were almost killed by their own tribe for not having abilities, even though they never got a chance to learn, were starting to get emotional. Their tails were wagging, and they crunched their noses to hold back their tears. Cal understood what these two were thinking and sternly continued. "I will give you as much beef as you want once you successfully return." The two siblings immediately jumped through the window and stealthily headed into the mountain. Naturally, the siblings did as Cal expected and earned their reward. They were able to have a 10-tier beefsteak to themselves. The next day, Cal drank the lemonade that he had now gotten used to drinking and asked Choi Han, "Have you ever seen a dragon?" Chapter 18. Saw a dragon 1. A dragon. "Yes. I've seen something similar once." "Similar, my ass." Cal knew what Choi Han was talking about when he said something similar, Forest of Darkness. He was talking about the vicious monsters deep inside the Forest of Darkness. Among those terrifying monsters were creatures that were somewhere between lizards and dragons. Choi Han had killed that dragon-like monster as soon as he advanced from the middle stage to the final stage of his Dark Destruction sword art. "You did? How was it?" Cal pretended to not know about the event and asked Choi Han. Choi Han was the only other person in Cal's room right now. "It was a monster." "How so?" "Its appearance, its strength, everything. It was a monster in all aspects." "Is that so?" Cal nodded his head and continued to speak. But his actions and his words were completely opposite. "Then you have not seen a dragon." "Excuse me?" "Dragons are like people." Clack. Cal put the cup with the lemonade that was both sweet and sour down on the table. He then responded to Choi Han, who was looking at him with curiosity. "Dragons, beast people, dwarves, elves, they are all like humans. Why? Because they also have emotions and lives." That aspect wasn't important to Cal. His main point started from here, however. Choi Han might have noticed Cal's sudden change in demeanor. He sat up straight and focused on what Cal had to say. "Such an existence has fallen into darkness since it was born. The only thing currently lighting up the darkness in its life is torches, and it has never even seen the light of the sun. What kind of life do you think it is having? Tap. Cal tapped the table with his index finger. It is being forced to become an existence without rationality. Tap. He tapped on the table once again. It has had to suffer through its loneliness without any family or anything to lean on. Tap. Choi Han's gaze fell every time Cal's finger tapped the table. Choi Han's fists were clenched underneath the table, to the point you could see his veins starting to flare up. Cal did not know about this, as he continued on. It is tortured and abused every day, and is only left alone when it is barely alive. Choi Han's expression stiffened, and anger was in his eyes. Cal knew Choi Han would react this way. There was no way a good person like this would not get angry after hearing such a story. He should also have figured out why Cal brought up such a story in the first place. Cal took another sip of his lemonade before finishing up his story. And that existence is nearby. A short silence filled the room. Cal looked out the window before slowly turning his gaze to look at Choi Han. He didn't know what Choi Han was thinking about, but his whole body was surrounded by a bloody aura. Is he getting angry at the fact that it is abused because he is a good person? Contrary to Cal's hypothesis, Choi Han was currently recalling the tens of years he had to survive on his own in the forest of darkness. That was why the silence continued for a while. Finally, Choi Han made eye contact with Cal and asked, "Will you save it and try to tame it? Are you crazy?" "Excuse me?" Cal acted on reflex and asked back in shock. Choi Han also became shocked at Cal's questioning his sanity. "Why would I try to tame it?" Cal waved his hand around like Choi Han was crazy. There was no way that a dragon that was abused by humans would be willing to serve a human. In fact, it probably was full of hate and disgust for any and all humans. Even if that human was the person that saved it. Dragons believe that they are above all creatures, including humans. This is a natural instinct for dragons, so even without being in contact with any other dragon in its whole life, it will still feel this way. That was why dragons cannot grow under humans. This attitude makes it impossible to domesticate and train dragons without using torture and abuse to break down its mind. Dragons are born extremely arrogant. But most importantly, if I raise a dragon, Cal could feel it. He felt like he would get wrapped up in some annoying incidents if he raised a dragon. There were less than 20 total dragons in the eastern and western continents combined. Raise one of those dragons. That was pretty much the same as saying, "I will be at the center of all the happenings of the continents." It was also a dragon that was supposed to die. It would be better for it to go off into its own little world and not get in anyone's way. Cal was definitely against this dragon coming with them. As long as he gets rid of the mana restriction chains, this 4-year-old dragon will live a much better life than Cal. Dragons weren't called the kings of the world since birth for no reason. Then, "Why are you asking such an obvious question?" Cal laughed at Choi Han's question before he answered. "Let it go so it can live a free and peaceful life. Shouldn't a dragon live like a dragon?" "I see." Choi Han's clenched fists slowly started to relax. "Then will we be saving that dragon?" "Yes." "So I need your help." "Anything. I really will do anything to help." Cal was worried that Choi Han would escalate the situation and shook his head. "No need to go overboard. I have no plans to kill anybody if possible either. We will do it as quietly as possible." "Cal Nim, you really." Choi Han started to speak with admiration, but Cal looked at the clock before cutting him off and saying what he needed to say. "Go tell Ron to prepare some alcohol on the first floor." "Our diff what?" Cal was prepared to drink first. He started drinking even though it was the middle of the day. Choi Han just sat there with confusion on his face while looking around. Everybody other than himself looked peaceful. In the middle of that peaceful environment was Cal Henitus, drinking bottle after bottle. The growing flush on his face made anybody who was watching him know that he was drunk. "Is it okay to let him drink so much?" Choi Han looked toward Hanz, who was next to him, and asked. Deputy Butler Hanz was delivering food to An and Hong, who were in their cat form. He still did not know that they were part of the cat tribe. He then refreshingly answered Choi Han's question. "Yes, there is nothing in his hand. Thus it is safe. He promised he won't throw any bottles. Choi Han was talking about Cal's safety, but Hans was referring to themselves. Choi Han just shut up after seeing the conversation take an odd turn and moved away from Hans. It was better to leave Hans alone when he was next to the kittens. Instead, Choi Han looked toward Cal to make sure he was safe. "Owner, your alcohol tastes great, much better than I expected." Cal didn't seem to know that Choi Han was looking at him, instead focusing on just praising the alcohol. They had been drinking for 2 hours already. There were some who were not drinking, just in case something happened, but the majority of the envoy was enjoying the festive atmosphere. They were all so nervous for the first hour tusk. When Cal had ordered them to gather, as he would be drinking, the soldiers showed up with their helmets on. Cal couldn't believe it, but told them that he will not throw any bottles to help them relax. This village may be small, but there are a lot of mountains around it. The alcohol is a special alcohol I made with fruit and herbs from the mountain. That is why it is a bit expensive. As the old man mentioned, the alcohol really did taste great. Cal admired the alcohol and lifted the bottle up to the old man. "Do you have a lot of these?" "Yes, quite a bit." "Then get some more and send it around to everybody here." "Young master, you don't need to." The vice captain shouted out with a flushed face, but his eyes were focused on the bottle in Cal's hand. The rest of the soldiers were looking at the same thing. Naturally, Cal was aware of what they were thinking. "Just drink. I'm telling you to drink, got it?" The eyes of the soldiers who were present all started to sparkle. It was the first time they became excited to see a bottle in Cal's hands. Cal watched the excited owner bring alcohol and snacks for everyone there with a sharp gaze. Cal Henitus. This human had a strong alcohol tolerance. Everybody thought he had a low tolerance because his face flushed easily, and he caused a ruckus whenever he drank. But the truth was that he did all those things without being drunk at all. That was why Cal's head was perfectly clear right now. He drank for another 30 minutes or so before looking toward Choi Han and starting to speak. "Choi Han, come support me. I'm going up to rest now." "Young master, I will do it." "It's okay. Vice Captain, rest a bit today. The rest of the soldiers as well. Didn't you fight in a battle yesterday?" "This is not a dangerous area, and I feel bad for the soldiers on guard duty, but the rest of you can relax and enjoy yourselves." "Young master, I'm tired. Bye." It would become complicated if the vice captain or the others followed him. Thankfully, none of them approached after seeing Choi Han supporting him. It was probably because Choi Han did not drink at all and was also the strongest person there. They had nothing to worry about since such a person was going to be guarding Cal. Just one person left. It was easy to avoid the guards at the gate and around the inn, but Ron was still left. Hans and Ron would never come into the room if he told them not to come in. However, the difference between the two was that Hans was not skilled enough to know if Cal was still in the room, while Ron was so skilled that he would easily be able to tell if Cal snuck out. "It's not like that old man will care about what I am doing." Realistically, Ron would not care whether Cal snuck out and what he did once he snuck out. That was how he had been until now. However, Cal didn't want things to get annoying in the future, so he decided to tell Ron in advance. Seeing Ron follow behind Choi Han, Cal quickly informed Ron. "Ron, I'm going to go out to play. It's a secret. Got it?" This old man liked to drink, but did not drink a single drop tonight. Instead, he was just staring at Cal all night. He really was a scary person. This benign smile that Ron was giving him right now was even scarier. "I understand. I will be waiting for you." "Don't. Wait for me, my ass." As expected, Ron agreed without saying anything else. Cal continued to be supported by Choi Han as he went into his room. "I'm going to be resting. Hans, Ron, don't come in to wake me up unless it is an emergency. You know how I get when someone messes with my sleep, right?" In the past, a servant received a barrage of swearing when they had to wake Cal up in Ron's place. Although Cal did not physically hit anybody, that servant went around the estate telling all the other servants about how he felt like he was hit by a flurry of swear punches. "Of course I do, young master. Please rest well." "Young master, this Ron will be standing right outside your room." Cal's expression stiffened at Ron's response, but he watched the two of them leave. before stealthily giving an order to Choi Han. Use the windows to quietly come back to my room. Choi Han nodded his head and quickly followed the other two out of the room and closed the door. Meow. Is it time now? Cal nodded his head at On and Hong, who followed him up to his room and immediately opened the box. Click. The magic lock clicked open, and Cal removed an outfit from inside the box. Once he finished changing, Choi Han entered through the window, and then his eyes opened wide in shock. Cal Nim. Before putting on the mask, Cal threw the black outfit in his hand toward Choi Han. You wear it too. The orb from yesterday should temporarily stop the magic recording devices, but that was not enough. Cal did not want to get caught. That was why he had been drinking since the middle of the day and prepared these outfits. What is this? The black outfit had a single red star and 5 smaller white stars surrounding it on the chest area. What is it? The outfit of the secret organization. The Birth of a Hero novel clearly and accurately explained the outfit of the secret organization that Choi Han runs into time after time. This outfit was specially ordered by Cal following the explanation as accurately as possible. Just to be on the safe side, Cal even had the outfit created separately and personally added the stars. That was why it was a bit crude up close, but it was pretty decent from a distance. People who see this outfit will not remember the crudeness of the stitching. They will just remember that it was a black outfit with 1 red star and 5 white stars. For Venyan, who has not personally met the secret organization like the Marquis did, the report from the subordinates who saw this outfit will definitely give him a significant headache and anger. Are we doing something bad? Choi Han asked once more after seeing Cal not respond. Seeing Cal with the black mask on as well definitely made him seem like a villain. Yes, we are doing something bad. Cal started to smile underneath the mask. We're doing something bad to Venyan. Ah. Choi Han seemed to finally understand as he quickly pointed to the other mask in Cal's hand. Please give it to me. Even good people will have someone they don't like and want to screw over. That was no different for this 17-year-old who spent tens of years alone in this world. Ah, and these kids are from the cat tribe. They are beast people. Cal casually introduced On and Hong to Choi Han as if it was nothing, and they just simply exchanged greetings as well. The cat tribe children, who were sensitive to a person's true character, already had a good idea about Choi Han's strength, and Choi Han had noticed they were not your average cats during their travel. He's Choi Han, this is On, that is Hong. End of introductions. Everybody get ready. There was a short time to get ready before Cal ordered Choi Han, who had just come out of the restroom wearing the same black outfit and black mask. Let's go. He then added on as he stood in front of the second-story window. Carry me when you go out the window. I can't jump so far down without getting hurt. Choi Han let out a sigh for the first time in front of Cal. On and Hong approached Choi Han and patted him with their paws to console him. Cal urged them on once again. Let's hurry. The group that safely exited the inn headed for the mountain with the Viscount's villa and the dragon's prison. Chapter 19. Saw a dragon, too. The location that the kittens, On and Hong, buried the black orb was out of Cal's expectations. The Viscount's villa was 30 meters away from the dragon's cave. On and Hong had buried the black orb 50 meters away from that cave, in an area filled with trees and shrubs, making it very difficult for the orb to be located. You two are kind of amazing. Something like this is a piece of cake. On was saying it was easy, but Cal could see On's nose twitching in joy. Cal, Choi Han, On, and Hong crouched around the location that the black orb, officially known as the Mana Disturbance Tool, was located, and looked toward the cave entrance that was 50 meters away, as well as the Viscount's villa that was farther away. You remember the plan. Cal had explained the plan on their way over. Realistically speaking, there wasn't much of a plan. There are a total of 6 people on guard at this time. Cal recalled the information he read in The Birth of a Hero. The black dragon was smart like most dragons. It had been gathering information for the 4 long years it was held captive, and there was a reason it attempted its escape 2 days later at around this time. There were, approximately, a total of 30 people residing in the villa. Originally, There were close to 100 people, but it slowly went down as they realized during the last 4 years that nobody really came to this area. Of course, among the 30 people, there were 3 high-leveled knights at the vice-captain's level, as well as 7 mid-leveled knights. There were also soldiers, the torturer, and random laborers. The number of people here showed just how much attention the Marquis has been putting onto this location. However, Cal had Choi Han. Choi Han was someone who could take down the strongest knight in the Roan Kingdom in 10 moves. Someone like that was on their side. Let me explain one more time. There is 1 high-leveled knight and 2 mid-leveled knights at the cave entrance, as well as 2 soldiers. Inside the cave, there is just 1 high-leveled knight, and the torturer is at the end of the cave. Choi Han flinched after hearing the word torturer, but Cal did not care. Cal did not care to know about the things that were going through Choi Han's mind right now. The important thing was that the black orb will activate soon, and that they needed to move quickly in response. The magic recording devices located from the villa to the cave entrance will not work for 40 minutes thanks to the black orb that On and Hong buried. That is the same for the alarms, magic traps, and anything else. Nothing will work for 40 minutes. They needed to domesticate this dragon, the greatest magic-using creature in the world, but they could not ask any mages for help. That was why Marquis Stan chose to fill this area with magic items instead. The reason that there were only a few guards around the entrance was also because they trusted their magic items. That was why the dragon had no choice but to cause a mana explosion to escape. An eye for an eye and money for money. Since the Marquis used money, Cal used money as well. Cal patted the magic bag on his waist. This was a magic bag that allowed you to store a lot of items. Inside this bag were all sorts of magic items, useful tools and objects. I just need to take out the guards. Naturally, Choi Han would be doing the battling. Why would Cal even try to fight when such a strong person was next to him? Cal thought paper cuts hurt a lot, so he didn't want to even think about getting cut by a sword. Yes, you are the only one I can rely on to cover my back, at least for now. Cal looked at Choi Han with a serious expression, and Choi Han nodded his head and sincerely responded back. I will definitely live up to your expectations. Yes, as I mentioned, make sure they see our outfit and then knock them out. Don't kill them and don't show them your sword art. You remember what to do after that, right? Choi Han's unique transparent black aura should be easily camouflaged by the darkness if he uses it carefully. Cal believed Choi Han should understand since he had already told him many times. Yes, I remember it all. Good, I'll leave it to you. Cal patted Choi Han's shoulders before handing him the voice-changing device. It would be bad if he had to talk during the fight and they recognized his voice. It's expensive, so don't break it. Got it. You do not need to worry about it. Cal then looked toward the kittens. Cal responded to their wagging tails that seemed to be asking for something. I will give you meat once it is over. That did not seem to be the right answer as they snorted and turned away. Cal didn't think much about it, instead verifying the time with his watch. 5 minutes left. The sky had already gotten dark, and it was night time. Cal then recalled the conversation he had with Billows. The magic items that have been influenced by the mana disturbance tool will instantly stop working, and most of them will turn off to prevent it from blowing up. However, the highest quality magic items will start beeping to signal that they are broken. It isn't like alarm magic, instead, it is more like a clock alarm. It will probably be loud. I don't know where you plan on using it, but it should be loud enough for the enemy to hear. Billows started to smirk and continued on. However, if there are a lot of magic items in the area, it will probably get chaotic with all of the alarms going off at the same time. Chaotic was enough for Cal. Get ready. The kittens also covered themselves with charcoal to cover the color of their furs. They then left Cal's side and disappeared into the darkness, such that Cal could no longer see them. The two of them would not be showing themselves in front of the enemies today. However, Cal knew that they would follow the plan and be around him. Choi Han folded up the handkerchief he was using to clean his blade and put it in his pocket. Once all of the preparations were finished, Cal stood up. Ring. Something started to vibrate right underneath where Cal had been sitting. The black orb had started to activate. Click, click. The seconds hand of Cal's watch slowly approached the set time, and finally the last click. Let's go. At Cal's order, Choi Han followed the plan and ran ahead quickly, while On started to create fog in the area. Cal was at the center of the fog, making it difficult to see him. At the same time, ring, the black orb finally activated. I guess they aren't all highest quality magic items. Some of the magic items started to ring loudly to sound their status. Cal followed behind Choi Han with the fog surrounding him and headed toward the cave. Starting now, it was a battle against time. Choi Han was already fighting against the knights in front of the cave. Scary bastard. In that short amount of time, the soldiers already had injuries on their arms and legs and were knocked out on the floor. Who are you? How dare you come to this place? Choi Han easily dodged the attack of the high-leveled knight. He then took a step forward and made a deep cut on the side of the knight. He then avoided the blood spurting out of the cut and used his elbow to attack the knight's back, followed by the back of the knight's neck. The knight fainted instantly. Shit, what the hell is going on? The high-leveled knight inside the cave soon showed up as well. Poison, Cal spoke through the voice-changing device. The fog surrounding him started to expand, and Hong started to stealthily move around and spread the poison to paralyze the enemy. The fainted individuals would not be able to move for a while, even if they did wake up. Cal then made eye contact with the high-leveled knight and said one word. Cover. Choi Han instantly stood in front of Cal and darted toward the cave entrance. Cal followed behind him. Block them. At the high-leveled knight's shout, two mid-leveled knights immediately charged toward Choi Han. Their swords started to glow, showing that the knights had inputted their aura into their swords. However, those two swords were instantly cut down. Clang. Clang. The upper half of both swords fell down to the ground. What the? Is he a sword master? Both shock and despair was in the voice of the high-leveled knight. The only thing that could cut through an aura-filled sword was a swordmaster's aura blade. After instantly cutting through the enemy weapons using his aura, which was camouflaged in the darkness, Choi Han used his sword and scabbard to attack a mid-leveled knight's neck and stomach at the same time. Ugh! Goo! He just needs one hit per person. Cal could not hide his amazement as he crouched behind Choi Han and continued to move. At that moment, they could hear some ruckus from far behind them. Intruders? It was coming from the villa. Cal turned his gaze back forward. The mid-leveled knights staggered before falling down. Cal made eye contact with them. They had been poisoned by Hong's paralysis poison. Poison? Assassin. Choi Han made them faint before quickly rushing toward the charging high-leveled knight and swinging his sword. Cal used that opening to go through the cave entrance. Even while he was doing that, he made sure the mid-leveled knights who called him an assassin saw the 6 stars on his outfit before fainting. Ugh, where did these people come from? So loud. Choi Han easily avoided the mana-filled sword of the high-leveled knight. He was dragging this out on purpose. While Choi Han was acting as the distraction, Cal entered the cave behind the cat tribe children who had stealthily entered earlier on. After verifying that Cal had entered, Choi Han moved to the front of the cave entrance. He then called out to the high-leveled knight, "Come." Of course, his gaze was not looking at the knight, but all of the enemies coming from the villa with torches. "I leave it to you." Choi Han could hear Cal's changed, yet still calm voice behind him and started to smile. However, he quickly focused on releasing only some of his strength. Dark Destruction Sword Art. This sword art consisted of 2 components, darkness and destruction. Of the 2, the force of destruction started to surround Choi Han. Nobody can get past this spot. He was someone who always kept his word. While Choi Han was protecting the entrance, there was someone else protecting something in a different manner in the cave. That person was none other than the torturer. He was the one to protect the dragon's prison. By the time Cal arrived inside, he was already in a state of chaos. Why? Why is the magic crystal ball not working? The magic crystal ball that the torturer held onto was one of the emergency backups that Venyan had prepared in case something went wrong. Don't come here. Do you know what is in here? The torturer was shaking violently while looking at Cal. He had no choice but to be scared. If the torturer received an attack higher than an average person's strength, he would instantly blow up. It was one of Venyan's safety measures as well. The strength of the blast would make the prison key and the prison itself blow up with the torturer as well. Naturally, the torturer knew about this. "If you come, everyone here will die, Tusk." Cal waved his hand while looking at the shaking torturer. Once he did, fog started to form in the air and headed for the torturer. The owner of the fog, was hidden in the shadows of the cave and still hidden. Go away, the sounds of battle from the cave entrance. The approaching fog. Of course, the inside the fog was completely filled with poison. The paralyzing fog quickly surrounded the torturer. Just what poison? The torturer's body started to shake as he fell to the ground. The torturer looked so terrible, being unable to speak or move as he forcibly shook on the floor. Cal approached the torturer and rummaged through his clothes. If you could not attack him, you just had to hit him with poison. Either that, or make a deal with him to hand the key over. However, he didn't want to use the latter method. Here it is. Cal grabbed the key and closed the eyes of the torturer, who was starting to lose consciousness from the poison. Cal wondered if they had used too much of the poison, but didn't really care. "I don't think he will die, but if he dies, oh well." Cal snapped his fingers. 2 little black bundles fell from the ceiling almost instantly. It was On and Hong. Once they came under the torch that Cal was holding, he could finally see the 2 of them clearly. Cal verified that On and Hong were safe before heading to the farthest corner of the cave. Once he arrived, he could see a curled-up black existence inside this now-useless magic prison. It was the dragon. The thing that shocked Cal more than the dragon itself was the blood covering the dragon and the scent of blood in the air. Cal quickly approached the prison. The dragon continued to keep its eyes closed, even as Cal approached. The dragon was probably in a state of chaos right now. Cal put the key into the lock and opened the door. Click. It unlocked with a light noise. Cal slowly opened the iron gate and entered into the prison. It was pretty large to be called a prison. There were whips and other torture tools, as well as the luxurious couch that Venyan sat on to watch. Cal headed to the corner of the prison. A small figure about 1 meter long was laying on a stack of hay in the corner. The inner eyelids of the dragon were shaking as it laid there with its eyes closed. There were chains on all of its limbs, and the mana restriction chain was on its neck, making it unable to use any strength. "Hey!" Cal crouched in front of the dragon. The dragon did not open its eyes even after Cal called out to it. Cal verified his watch. It was time to leave. He continued to speak to the dragon. "Let's leave." Cal used the key he had obtained from the torturer to undo the chains. The dragon opened its eyes at that moment. Cal started to smile after looking at the dragon's eyes. It was still a very strong gaze. It had not lost its will to live just yet. It was not the dying gaze that Choi Han had run into in the novel. It was still a gaze with a strong desire to live. That was why it was filled with energy, anger, and resistance. It was the gaze of a dragon. What a nice gaze. Cal lifted the dragon into his arms. Chapter 20. Saw Dragon 3. After coming out of the prison, Cal put the dragon down in front of the 2 kittens. "That looks like it hurts." So sad. On and Hong circled around the still silent dragon. The dragon started to show its teeth and growl at them. This was probably the first time in its life it ever saw anything other than humans. Cal verified the time on his watch. It looked like they had just enough time to escape. "It looks like it hurts." On approached Cal and tapped his leg. She seemed to be thinking about the potion Cal brought in his magic box. She couldn't ask him for it, so she could only act this way. Hold on. Cal had brought that potion to use it. However, he needed to wait until the mana restriction chains were off. The potion would only work properly if the mana, which was practically as important as a dragon's heart, was no longer restricted. Cal started to head toward the opposite side of the prison, the location the torturer seemed to be guarding. It wasn't very loud, but he could hear Choi Han fighting in the distance. Cal presumed that Choi Han's battle would end soon as well. Let's see. Cal started to pat the cave wall with his hands. He kicked the torturer with his foot to get him out of the way, and continued to pat every aspect of the wall. The dragon growled after seeing the torturer, but stayed still and continued to focus on Cal. Venyan's last line of defense should be around here somewhere. Like all of the members of Marquis Stan's family, Venyan was extremely worried about someone intruding while he was inside. He had created a secret tunnel to use as an escape route if something like that ever happened. If the torturer knew about it, he probably would have used it to escape earlier, but sadly, even the torturer did not know about this escape route. The novel said there was a flat area on this bumpy wall. Ah, here it is. There was a flat area about the size of a person's hand on this bumpy cave wall. Although Venyan looked like he had OCD and would never do anything like training, everyone in the Marquis family had learned martial arts. If you use a strong enough force on that location, the wall will open. It was not a magic device. Instead, the force of the impact made the device move. Cal turned his head to look toward the person who entered and asked, "All done?" "Yes." Choi-Han lightly swung his sword in the air to get rid of the blood on it and then approached Cal. His gaze soon turned toward the dragon and started to frown. It was a natural reaction to seeing such a small creature being covered in blood. The glare in Choi-Han's eyes as he stared at the torturer was vicious. "Choi-Han." That was why Cal had called out to Choi-Han. Choi-Han was still glaring at the torturer as he reported. "As you ordered, I left the escaping workers alone. I also made sure that all of the strong individuals would not be able to fight." "Good job." Cal praised Choi-Han before pointing to the flat area on the wall. "Punch this spot." "As strong as I can. Are you planning on destroying the cave?" "No, control your strength. Just pretend you are creating a 10 cm dent in this wall." So very lightly." "Sure, very lightly." Cal quickly stepped away from Choi-Han after hearing Choi-Han call something that was impossible for Cal to do as only using a tiny bit of his strength. Choi-Han understood that to be Cal telling him to hurry, and immediately punched the wall with his fist. Boom! Wow. Oh. Cal picked the dragon back up while the kitten's siblings were admiring what happened. A chilling screeching noise came out of the wall, and an area the size of an adult male appeared to one side of the cave wall. Choi-Han quickly picked up the torch. "Let's go." At Cal's command, the kittens got on Choi-Han's back, as Choi-Han stepped into the tunnel first. Cal followed behind him. The dragon remained quiet in Cal's arms, with only the sound of its breathing coming out of it. However, the eyes that were staring at Cal were still extremely vicious. Rather than any gratitude for saving him, it seemed to be filled with thoughts of terror about being tortured by someone else, as well as anger and resentment toward humans. "Stop staring at me like that." Cal casually talked to the dragon in his arms. "Ah, I'm a bit out of breath." Cal was out of breath as he tried to keep up with Choi-Han, who seemed to have no issues running. Should I have made Choi-Han carry the dragon? The 1-meter-long dragon was pretty heavy. It would not be this hard if he was able to get his hands on the ancient power called the vitality of the heart. Cal held the dragon tightly in his arms so that he would not throw it away in anger. There was no way he could leave it here after spending all that effort to rescue it. The dragon just continued to watch him. Cal's black clothes started to become covered in the dragon's blood. After running through that dark and narrow tunnel for a few minutes, Choi-Han suddenly called out to Cal. "There is a wall in front of us. Hit the center of the wall with your fist with the same strength as before. Then we will continue to run as discussed." "I understand." The kittens jumped off of Choi-Han's shoulder and started to run. Choi-Han put some strength into his fist and hit the center of the wall with the same strength as earlier. Boom! The wall almost instantly collapsed and they could see the night sky. They were outside the cave. This time, Cal took the lead as he looked around. This was the reason they needed the mana disturbance tool to work on the entire mountain. Venyan had put a magic recording device on this secret tunnel entrance as well. He was a very thorough person. Cal didn't know exactly where this entrance was located, necessitating the mana disturbance tool to work on the entire mountain. They did not have much time left. They needed to get out of the range of the magic recording device in the next 1 or 2 minutes, but it should not be a problem. Choi Han followed behind Cal and made new traces of their presence, or erased some traces as they passed. After surviving in the forest of darkness on his own for so long, he was an expert at creating and following tracks. After running away from the secret tunnel entrance for about 2 minutes, Cal looked at his watch. Stop. The alarms that were going off in the area suddenly stopped blaring. The monodisturbance tool had stopped working. Hoo! Cal took a deep breath, calming his rapidly beating heart. The indestructible shield around his heart was gathering strength every time his heart beat like that, just in case an emergency situation happened. I have no plans to use it right now. However, Cal was not planning on using this shield just yet. After freeing this dragon and saying goodbye to Choi Han in the next city, he was planning on gaining the ancient power, vitality of the heart, to strengthen this shield. Only then would he use the shield. Now that he had the time to look around, Cal looked down toward the dragon. He then started to smile. The rebellious gaze was gone, and the dragon was looking up at the night sky in admiration. This was the first time the dragon saw anything other than the cave walls in its 4 years of life. Cal understood what the dragon was feeling and wanted to give it some more time, but he could not do that. He put the dragon down on the grass and continued to look at it. The dragon looked right back at him. Its eyes were once again filled with anger and resentment as it curled its body up and looked ready to attack. No wonder it continued to get tortured for 4 years. It won't back down at all. That was why Cal personally liked this dragon. It was different from himself. Growing up being abused as an orphan, Kim Rock-soo had given in. After that, he didn't want to be the main character of a story like Choi Han. After giving in at a place he called home, he didn't think he had the strength to fight against the world. Hey. Cal made sure the dragon was looking at him, then took out a pair of gloves and some scissors-shaped cutting tool. There were a lot of magic seals on both of the blades for cutting. He then put on the electricity-resistant gloves. This cutter was one of the 2 items that had to be rented in Billows's name. This was not something you could borrow with money. I don't know why you need this, but, young master, I hope to see you alive in the capital. You think I'm going to die. All I know is that you plan to cause a commotion. Shut up. Cal was thinking about the conversation he had with Billows, before realizing that his surroundings suddenly became extremely quiet. Choi Han was looking at the cutter with chaotic eyes, while the kitten siblings had moved away from Cal and were hiding behind Choi Han. The dragon was still just staring at him. Tusk. Cal clicked his tongue at their response and approached the dragon. The Monar restriction chain was made with something similar to rubber. If it was made of metal, it would not have fit the growing dragon. That was why it was made of something with some elasticity. He then grabbed the dragon's neck. Gasp. The kittens took in a deep breath. However, Cal ignored them as he continued onward, since it was better to do this as fast as possible. The cutter headed for the dragon's neck. The sharp blade shone under the moonlight, and the dragon just paid attention to Cal's eyes. Cal's eyes were emotionless and peaceful. The dragon closed its eyes. At that moment, they all heard the snapping noise of something getting cut. Sizzle. Sizzle. The Monar restriction chain was causing sparks in Cal's hands. What are you looking at? Cal scoffed at the dragon that had opened its eyes back to look at him and took off one of the gloves and handed it to Choi Han. Choi Han put the glove on, and Cal handed the chain to him before taking the potion out of his pocket. It was a highest-grade potion. Even this cost quite a bit to purchase. It made Cal feel bad for asking for an allowance the last few days before he left. Cal clicked his tongue and sharply stared at the dragon. You know how much money I spent on you? The dragon could hear the same words he heard quite often. He had heard it almost every day since he was born. Why do you not listen to me when I spent so much money on you? Guess you need to be beaten some more. Then he was beaten. They said that he needed to stop thinking for himself and listen to them as they continued to beat him. However, since I spent so much money on you, you better heal properly, you stupid fool. The dragon did not feel any pain. Cal poured about half of the potion onto the dragon's back and poured the rest into its mouth. Thankfully, the dragon did not resist and swallowed it down. After a few minutes, Cal could only think that it really was a dragon. The mana, which was the equivalent to the dragon's heart, and the source of all of its power, started to move in its body. All of the injuries on the dragon's body instantly disappeared, and a blue aura that seemed to be the dragon's mana surrounded its body like the wind. This change that occurred in an instant made Cal think about just how scary and powerful of an existence dragons really were in this world. Hey. The dragon should have no reason to get injured anymore. The smart dragon seemed to understand what had happened to its body as its eyes came completely back to life. Cal took a step toward the dragon. The baby dragon curled up while continuing to observe Cal. Cal ignored the dragon and asked, "What do you want to do now?" Cal started to smile while looking at the dragon that remaining silent. "I know you can speak the human language. You are a dragon, the smartest and strongest existence in the world." Cal asked once more, "What did you want to do once you got free?" "I." The dragon started to speak. The dragon really did know how to speak the human language. It was much smarter than humans. There was no way it did not learn the human language in the last 4 years. "I." The dragon could feel it in his heart. With his current strength, he could easily kill the man in front of him. He was scared of the man in the back, but it would be possible for him to escape alive. He had gained the strength he had waited for so long to obtain. That was why the dragon finally said the thing he had thought to himself over and over for the last 4 years. However, this was the first time he said it out loud. "I will live. He will live no matter what it took. I will go away." He was going to go away from here. He revealed his inner thoughts. "I will not be tamed." "Yes, you are right." Cal was saying the dragon was right. "You are a dragon. You have the right to live freely." Even a 4-year-old dragon was stronger than most of the animals in the world. It had enough strength to survive on its own, and, normally, dragons were extremely independent and prideful. They generally wanted to create their own lair once they turned about 2 years old. It was completely worlds apart than a human 2-year-old. Cal looked into the eyes of the dragon that still did not trust humans and sternly started to speak. "I will not take care of you." Cal did not have a reason to look after something that was stronger than him. There were also too many potential headaches to keep him around to pay back for Cal's help. It was different from the children from the cat tribe On and Hong. A dragon was beyond Cal's limits. The dragon could not trust Cal. Liar. Humans are good at lying. There was now anger in the dragon's eyes. That anger was not directed at Cal, however. Dragons were naturally born with a lot of pride. This anger came from the years that his pride was trampled upon by the humans. "I guess that is true. I do lie quite a bit as well." Cal easily accepted the dragon's words and continued to speak. "Live however you want to live. What is it you want to do?" "I." The baby dragon lifted its head to look at the night sky. It was different from the darkness inside the cave. It was dark, but there was still light. "I hate humans." "I want to be free." "Good." Cal got up from his seat. He then took out some mid-grade potions and a smaller pouch from his magic bag and put the potions in the bag before handing it to the dragon. "Live freely." The dragon's black pupils enlarged and started to shake. However, there was still doubt and resentment in its eyes. Naturally, Cal did not care. This should be enough. He freed the dragon, screwed Venyan over, saved the village, and helped Choi Han understand what freedom means thanks to the dragon. Most importantly, he did not need to take responsibility for the dragon. He could see in its eyes that it did not want to follow him. It was a very good conclusion. Cal spoke to his party members in a satisfied tone. "Let's go." He turned his back to the dragon with no regrets and started to walk. Choi Han silently followed behind Cal and focused on altering their tracks. The kittens, who hesitated for a moment, saw the dragon turn its gaze away from Cal before following behind him. Once even the cat tribe sibling turned away from it, the dragon lifted its head and watched them walk away. "I hate humans. They are evil." For some reason, the dragon was paying more attention to the back of the human, the race that he was annoyingly used to and hated, rather than the night sky that it was seeing for the first time. Hong slowly approached his sister On as they followed behind Cal. "Nuna, I think he's going to follow us." I think so too." "Am I going to get a younger brother?" "It looks like it." The kittens were conversing with themselves, but Cal scoffed at them and retorted back. No way, dragons are extremely prideful and will never accept being under a human. Furthermore, this dragon hates humans. Ainz's expression seemed to disagree. If a cat had a mocking expression, it would probably be the one of Ainz's face right now. Ainz shook her head and quietly mumbled, "I don't think so." Uh-huh. Hong looked behind him before agreeing with his sister. The black dragon was still looking in their direction. Hong was now sure. This dragon will enjoy its freedom for a bit, before sharing some beef with him in the future. Cal ordered the two kittens who were whispering to each other, "Go get the orb back." The two siblings went to get the orb so that they could eat some more beef. Cal did not even look at the siblings as he patted Choi Han's shoulder. Good work. Today should have been the first time Choi Han ever saved anything. There was that battle with the bandits earlier, but that was more protecting than saving. Of course, the actual events changed from saving the village people from the dragon in the novel to saving the dragon that he actually had killed in the novel. But the important thing here was that he saved someone. Cal Nim. What? Choi Han was silent for a while after calling out to Cal's name before he finally started to speak once again. What if the dragon decided that living as it wants was to follow you, Cal Nim? That will never happen. What if, just hypothetically speaking, hypothetical? Cal thought about it for a while before lightly responding. I don't think about what ifs or the past. But for some reason, Cal suddenly got the chills and looked behind himself for the first time since walking away from the dragon. Thankfully, the black dragon was not visible. Cal sighed in relief before returning to the inn and falling asleep. That was why he did not know that the dragon used magic for the first time to become invisible and sat at his window sill for a long time before leaving. The dragon was tightly clutching the bag of potions that Cal had given him. The next day, Cal had to deal with Choi Han's questions from early in the morning. Cal Nim, there is a city coming up in a few days. Is that the middle point? It was almost time for Choi Han to finish making up his payment that Cal had talked about. It also meant that Cal was getting closer to receiving another ancient power for himself. Originally, in the novel, the eldest son of Marquis Stan's family, the one who was pushed out by Venyan, would find this ancient power in about a month. It was his last glimmer of hope, but unfortunately, it ended up being a power that he could not use.